On Bettor Sports Network.
And now, before the next show starts, let's enjoy an intermission.
I don't know about you, but I'm going for lunch.
Hey, who's up for a little lunch? Something festive.
Hey, what you eating?
Feed me now. I'm starving.
Somebody's hungry.
Go nuts.
Where's food? Let's just pretend there's food.
I'll take that sandwich to go. This is a lot of darn nonsense.
Enough of this.
I am ready to start the show.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
Yes, it is your daily sports nutritional supplement. We welcome you to Lunch Money here on BSN. Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers with you. I know the calendar says March 22nd, but I'm kind of wondering, Ray, did we already just see the biggest moment in the baseball season last night? Shohei Ohtani facing Mike Trout in the World Baseball Classic? I hope not. I hope I'm totally wrong. But did we just see the biggest moment of the baseball season before the season has even started?
Didn't we talk about this yesterday? How, of course, it's going to come down to these two guys. And somehow it did. Remarkable theater for all the obvious reasons. I hope not. But in terms of the world experience, that was it. I mean, because we saw this all throughout the WBC. And, the players were interviewed. And basically, everyone said this is more important than the Major League Baseball season. Everyone said this means more to them than the Major League Baseball season. Clearly, the world doesn't watch MLB on a daily basis. So this is the biggest moment that we're likely to see in baseball in the world in 2023.
Yes, and it went down with Shohei Ohtani striking out Mike Trout. I'm sure you saw the tweet, Ray. I think Mike Trout, it's something like 6,000 plate appearances. He has swung at all three strikes like 25 times. And that's what he did last night against Ohtani, where he struck out swinging on all three strikes. He didn't take a strike. He was swinging on all three strikes. And that never happens to Mike Trout. Kind of wild to see it in that moment. And frankly, I hate to say a guy looked foolish. He's Mike Trout, but like Ohtani dominated that at bat. I didn't even feel like Mike Trout really stood a chance with those swings, honestly.
I mean, this is what we talk about all the time when people say, oh, with the shift and, just hit it the other way and these kind of things. And I always go back to the Freddie Freeman quote that Jason Stark had last year, where basically Freddie Freeman, I'm, not directly quoting him, but he basically said, good luck hitting the ball the opposite way when the guy's throwing 99 miles an hour and dropping a 93-mile-an-hour slider on you. Good luck with that. Hitting has never been more difficult. I mean, when you and I were kids, there were 3-4 guys in baseball that threw 95? Like no one even threw 95 when we were kids. And now 95 is the norm. It's like now we see guys every game hitting triple digits. It's impossible to hit. It's amazing these guys have the success that they do.
I said I hope it's not the biggest moment of the year. I hope we have more fantastic moments, and I think we will. I think it's safe to say. That moment last night has driven one of our chat room attendees to prose. Right? They just sent us a poem about the WBC final last night. Would you like me to read it?
Let's go for it. Absolutely.
Poetry on Lunch Money. Here you go. This is Get in the Game. Get in the Game. This is his work or her work. Here we go. It was the final game between the U.S. and Japan, with everything on the line to see who is the man. USA jumped out front when Turner drilled a seed, but Japan roared back and took a 2-1 lead. Tensions were high as the game rolled on, but with just one swing in the fourth, and it's gone. USA down by 2 with 2 innings to go. Schwarber goes yard and makes it a show. Bottom of the 9th, down 1 and 2 out. Ohtani on the mound. At the plate stood Mike Trout. Angel versus Angel as the clock neared 11. Please don't end, oh man. Is this baseball heaven? 2 of the best. It would come down to this. Will Trout go yard? Ohtani can't miss. Japan for the win. They showed us the door. Arigato, my friends. You are champions once more. Now, I will say, Ray, that is well done.
Very well done.
Get
Yes.
the game. I like that. Is arigato like arrivederci in Japanese? Is that see you later? Is that sayonara? Is that how they say it?
I
Goodbye?
think let me look that up, but I want to say that it means tough.
Tough? Arigato?
Look
That
that
is
up.
not part of my normal everyday word usage. So I don't know that.
Yeah, I have to look that up too.
Maybe it just fit and he stuck it in there. Regardless, the rest of the poem is damn good. I like it. It's very good. I got to admit, out of all the baseball I've watched, Ray, I don't think I've ever been driven to poetry. We are now told Heather Klein. She says it means thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much, my friends. Very good. Thank you. Arigato. Get in the game. Very good. Very good. I have only been driven to poetry and sports once, Ray. I remember in high school, we were supposed to write a poem about. I'll have to hunt this down. I think I've got this somewhere, by the way. I'm gonna have to bring this on the show maybe for a treasure trove. We had to write like poetry about something important to us. As usual, I took it very seriously and focused on the important things in my life. And at the time, Ray, I was a huge Latrell Sprewell fan. This was pre-choking.
Yep. Okay.
PJ Clark.
Right.
This was pre-choking. And Ray, I wrote a very lengthy poem about Latrell Sprewell. So maybe I can hunt that poem down. I'm sure my mother saved it. She was probably touched and honored by it. So I'll have to get that for a treasure trove. But have you ever been driven? Poetry is not a love of mine. I've never written it. I've never like bought a book of poetry. It's just never been anything. I like literature, writing, all that, but poetry, Ray, it's a non-starter for me. How about you?
I remember in 4th grade, I did a haiku about a red panda because it was a class assignment. But I'm not a flowery writer guy. Every once in a while, I'll have an inspiration and I'll have a good sentence or maybe a paragraph. But I don't spend much time ruminating on things. I kind of just go. And so poetry, not only do I not produce it, I actually don't read much of it. It just, I'm more of an analytical, historical, factual kind of guy.
Like I've heard of Leaves of Grass. I know it's Walt Whitman, but have I read Leaves of Grass? No. And Heather, our producer, just to answer your question, no, I have never wooed my wife with poetry. I woo my wife with my handsome good looks. That's how
maybe I should try poetry. Maybe that's my problem. I don't.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not a flower guy, as she would tell you. Oh, you used to do that. Well, we do a lot of things before a child comes along and your life is taken over. But maybe somewhere with one of those flower sins, right? Maybe there was a beautiful limerick, maybe a 4-line piece of poetry. I don't know. I'll have to ask her. She remembers those kind of things, not me. Okay, good stuff, man. I got to say, I didn't expect to start the show with poetry, but that's where we're starting today. World Baseball Classic is over. Japan is the champ, so congrats to them. More on that coming up. More baseball, football. We're everywhere today. Whatever happens, we will talk about it right here on Lunch Money. Pleasure to have all of you with us. That's why we have a chat room. So if you're ever so inclined and you ever just feel the urge to let loose with some poetry, by all means, do it. Maybe we'll become a poetry bulletin board here at Lunch Money. People can just rhyme away for 3 hours. I want to thank our producers, Heather Klein and Josh Winchester. Great job, as always, by them. We expect another great job again. Ray, let us start with our lunch menu today. A chance for you and I to talk about whatever we want to talk about, kind of lay out what we've got coming for the next 3 hours. So start us off with the dart throw. Anything you want to hit on in the sports world, anything on your mind, it is our appetizer. Where are you going, Ray Flowers?
It's very applicable since we just finished the WBC and we just talked about the WBC to return to a poll that I ran just a couple days ago about the WBC. There's been a lot of talk, and this basically was around the time that Diaz got hurt. Edwin Diaz, again, remember, he didn't get hurt in the game. He got hurt during the celebration. But it became the whole, they shouldn't play the WBC. You and I talked about this. We both said, It doesn't matter. You get hurt on the practice field, you get hurt in spring training, and again, Diaz was hurt in a celebration. So anyway, I just ran a poll because you and I have talked about it, and I think everyone's kind of been talking about it. Like, I think everyone realizes the importance of the WBC. Again, these players are interviewed, and like 95% of them said this is more important than playing in the majors. I mean, I'm shocked by the honesty. I appreciate it, I guess, but playing for your country, playing. The world loves it. The fans loved it. I mean, they were getting twice as many fans there in games as they were getting when the Marlins play. Like, it's a thing, right? It really is a thing. So we got to figure a way to keep this going. And so I ran a poll and I said, when is the best time to keep this going? And it was three options, excuse me. After the season, in the middle of the season, in the preseason. Right now, obviously, it's the preseason. I think you can make arguments for all three. I think you can point and shoot holes in all three. So I was curious to see what people thought. Preseason, when it is right now, 40% of people chose that option. Mid-season, so all-star break kind of thing, 11%. So no one at all seemed to like that option, which of course means after the season was the winner at 49%. So I guess we can throw out replacing the all-star game, Kyle. I guess no one wants to do that. But the other two almost, yeah. Oh, you do? Yeah, well, that's,
I do.
You think that would be the best time of the three options to play the WBC?
Yeah, I'm with the 11 percenters, Ray. Baseball's a long season, right? We all agree with that. Guys would love a rest. Ray, it's not played over 4 or 5 days like an all-star break kind of lasts. Take a week and a half, 2 weeks off. Middle of the season. Literally nothing else is going on the schedule. Even the NFL takes a break in early July. Like, you've kind of got the sports world wanting something big, okay? Now, eliminating the All-Star game, that's pretty significant. We've been talking about 100 years or so of the All-Star game.
You play it after the season. They used to do that.
Yeah, you could. I like it mid-season. Now, I am not, unlike so many baseball crazies, because I've picked up on this, right? Baseball people really liked this WBC. Mm-hmm. Really liked it. They were all pushing how exciting it was and fun this was. I've got friends who truly enjoyed it. I've already told you where I stand. Like, I was following last night, but to me, it's like, kind of cool. You know, it's not life or death for me. Like, I don't feel bad or worse with a U.S. win or a U.S. loss. I'll say this again. I got 6.5 months of caring about baseball. I got 6.5 months of literally every single night watching and listening to baseball. That's my life. Okay, that's it. So I don't need a 2-week exhibition. I get it. It's fun and the players care and it's cool. But I don't need it. I got more baseball to worry about in my life. I've got a life to worry about in my life. So, like, I'm somebody, Ray, who cares a ton about baseball and cares a ton about the regular season. That's what I care. There's a lot of people who watch the WBC. They don't care about the regular season, and that's fine. You know, different strokes for different folks. But if you put this in the middle of the season, Ray, I actually might care about it more. I actually might. And I think it's a more natural fit. It allows teams to take a break. It allows fans to take a break. And then you kind of start up with renewed excitement after 2 weeks off. Arms are rested because, again, I'll get it. Other guys will go to play in this, but a vast majority of players will not. So they'll get to rest up. And I think that would make for a better product in the second half of the season. If you just threw out a 2-week break in the middle of the season and did nothing, you would lose all momentum.
Right.
People would forget about the season, everything. And, baseball. Well, I thought they quit 2 weeks ago. But if you had something to cover those 2 weeks, to keep the baseball crazed fan involved, I think that would work. And it would highlight this. Like, if this is truly a super awesome, great event, and that's what everybody says, I'm going to trust the people that really watch this stuff, then why are we playing it in the midst of March Madness, in the midst of spring training, in the midst of NBA and NHL playoff pushes, like all this other, this is a busy part of the sports schedule. Play this when nothing else is going on, Ray. I'm with your 11%. Play it in July.
Well, it's interesting because the NHL has done this. The NHL shut down for the Olympics, right? So there's precedent of a major sport doing this. I think I think it's messy because you do it now, you run the risk. I mean, we heard you, Darvish. I don't know if I'm going to be ready for full strength at the start of the regular season because I'm used out of the bullpen. Like Ray Flowers doesn't understand how a professional athlete who's being paid $25 million can't be ready to go and throw 93 pitches in the first game. Like, what are you doing? Like, it boggles my mind. But we're hearing that. Teams put all these roles on, all these rules, on countries. You can only play this guy or so much or whatever. So there's that. If we get to midseason, you'll get that's not fair because so-and-so is hurt and so-and-so is hurt on these two teams. But now they get a free 10 days to rest up. So when the regular season starts again, they're good to go. If you do it after the season, you'll have people say, well, all these guys are hurt. People aren't going to play. They're just going to go away and go home, or they're going to keep playing and they're going to hurt themselves because they're too tired. So I think you can make plus and minus arguments for all of it. I think that having it early seems to create more problems than solutions, in my opinion, where it is right now. I think, again, more problems than solutions. So I would lean more toward the mid-season or late season option with the pitfalls that brings. But it would be fascinating if the league did kind of that mid thing that, like, again, the NHL has done with the Olympics Cup.
Yeah, I think this event's going to be back in 3 years or so. I think 2026, and Rob Manfred says it's March, and that's fine. The people that like it, they're still going to like it. Okay, they will. The people that probably don't watch it probably won't watch it, and I don't see how baseball could be upset with the attention that this has garnered. This is easily the most followed WBC we've had. So they may look at the numbers and say, numbers were up. Let's keep it in March. Let's keep the excitement there. That's where we want to put it. To me, it doesn't rise to the point of like, I've got to have this happen. I've got to have this happen. Again, it's great. Baseball is in the news. Okay, that's cool. And the Ohtani Trout thing, that's cool. I'm down for it. I'm wanting baseball to be more attractive. I'm wanting more people to come to baseball. Believe you me, things that are successful that baseball does to get people to come to it, I'm not going to dig all of them. I mean, none of us are going to dig every single thing that baseball does. So there are some things I like, some things I'll pay attention to, others I won't. So if the WBC helps, the bottom line, go for it. Do it. Keep it rolling. Sounds like teams enjoy it. Sounds like players enjoy it. In terms of participation, I would say, Ray, the participation's pretty good. Mm-hmm. I know it has been written and observed that for the U.S., a lot of the best pitchers didn't have interest here, chose not to be a part of this, and that's absolutely their prerogative. But Ray, I think when you see Merrill Kelly starting your decisive game, it's not because you burned through your bullpen the night before. It's because Merrill Kelly was the fourth best pitcher to say, yeah, I'll be a part of this thing. And that's kind of the indictment here, I guess, from the American side, is there were a lot of really good pitchers. Scherzer, Verlander, Cole, Bieber, like on and on and on, that weren't a part of this for the USA.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, an option they have had for the event to take is, well, just use non-professionals. And it's like, how's that going to work? No one's going to, I mean, we're going to send 19-year-olds and no one's,
that's
other
the
countries.
Olympics.
Yeah, that's what the Olympics is for, right? Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it is a weird thing because my take, and it's not PC, but my take is United States doesn't give a damn and the rest of the world cares a ton. And every other country in the world wants to win this thing like it's the most important thing they've ever seen. And the U.S. just doesn't care. It's just another game. I mean, that's because that's the way the roster was constructed. And, at some level, I get it because, the Mets or the Dodgers or whoever, they're paying you 10, 20, 30 million dollars. And, I mean, who's paying you? And so I don't know. I talking to my friends and the people I know who are sports fans, I didn't get texts every 10 minutes and call. No one cared. But the rest of the world, it's all they're talking about. So it's a weird situation. It's tough when your championship game for the world title comes down to Merrill Kelly, who we don't even want starting for us in the fantasy game in a lot of instances.
Yeah, that Friends thing. I've got a text chain that would be baseball fans. It's kind of the 6-7 of us that are big baseball fans, and I would say last night, Ray, there were probably 4 of them that were really into it. I was busy. I was doing work here for BSN, so I was unable to watch it. But I know they were texting back and forth about the game, so that's good to see. I know our chat room is pushing heavy for after the World Series. Again, I have no issue with after the World Series. To me, it's a lot like preseason. I guess the only thing I'd say to after the World Series, Ray, is it would kind of feel like the XFL feels now, where the XFL starts the week after the NFL, and literally I don't need any more football. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't. So I don't care. I'm sorry. I'm going to give my fresh opinion here. I don't know if I'd say that for baseball, but Ray, when I've been watching baseball from April all the way through early November, I don't know if I'm going to tune in for another 2 weeks of it. So I don't know if people, and again, the busyness. I mean, you're running smack dab into college football with conference races and all that. College basketball has started. It's the middle of the NFL season. Now, for baseball fans, who cares? You're going to watch it whenever.
Right.
But I think as a business, when you think about when to play this thing, you want to be in a spot where it's like you're at the top. That's what baseball needs. That's what they're trying to regain, is some of the luster, the attraction. Frankly, if you're going up against the NFL, they're going to care less about it in November than they care about it now. Really. In November, I think you're really making it an afterthought. Beyond that, I would doubt, I don't want to say this is certain, but I would doubt anybody from the final 4 teams in baseball is going to commit to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Would be so. I'm not saying the World Series or post World Series is a terrible opinion or thought or viewpoint, but I think it's probably the worst of the 3 options, I would say.
Well, and also think about this too. You have a long season. So anyone that's dealing with an injury is not going to play.
Yeah.
You have a long season. Anyone that's looking at the offseason and saying, I can't afford to give up a month of my offseason, they're not going to play. You got to remember then too, over half the league doesn't make the playoffs. They're going to be, those players aren't going to have played a real game in well over a month. Where are they going to be at rust-wise? So, is it any better than doing it now? So again, like I said at the start here, there are positives and negatives to, I think, every decision made. And they've settled on what they have now. I'll be interested to see if they make changes. To me, doing it early, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's the worst option. But
you
again,
think it's the worst? Yeah,
I kind of do. But again, at the end, you have different issues, but they're the same issues. The middle of the season might be the best option, but then you also have to worry about the players not playing. And if you don't play a game for 2 weeks there, do they then have to do a week of training, to get back? So again, there's pitfalls all the way around. I'm just surprised that the middle of the season option was only 11%. No one seemed to like it.
Yeah. I'll tell you this too. If you play this in November, post World Series, I'll tell you one guy who's not on that field, Trey Turner. He wouldn't have been on that field. He was a free agent. You think any free agent is stepping on that field? Aaron Judge wouldn't have been a part of this. Trey Turner, heck no. So Trey Turner hits 5 home runs. What do you have? 11 RBIs, went crazy. He would never. And I know this year it's Trey Turner because he was a free agent. The WBC took place. But in 2026, if you play this in November, whoever the big free agent is, the big 5, the big 10, the big 20, the big 30, like if I'm a top 25 free agent, I'm not playing in this thing. Are you kidding? So, Ray, like you would run into all these roadblocks. Like free agents, they would be screwing their family over by playing the World Baseball Classic.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, can you imagine Edwin Diaz having what happened to him and going into free agency?
No, you could, and you're right, they wouldn't do it. And again, when you're talking about 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, you can't risk that as much as you'd want to play. But you can't take a chance there. What about one more option to throw out starting at the beginning? What if they did it at the same time, but let's say they added a week to spring training? You think that would help? Or push back the event a week? You know what I mean? To give players more of a run up, because we're hearing, I'm not ready for week 1 or day 1. Maybe give them an extra week in camp. Again, I can't figure out how professional athletes can't show up and be ready to play. I don't get that.
It would probably be on the front end, Ray. Like you'd start earlier in February,
right?
I would think, because they still want to keep this around this spot, because you want to get back into your camp with a few days to go, and that's what's going to happen. All these guys will have today off. They'll be back in camp Thursday or Friday, and then they ramp up to the start of the year. It would be the same to me. I don't know if that week would make a huge difference in terms of turnout ability, all that interest. I don't know, maybe. It's a tough sport to find a perfect spot for. Like, Ray, you can kind of get away with the other sports of playing things. Maybe not football. Football, the hits add up and the injuries add up. And baseball's got that too. You just wear down. And maybe we've talked about it a lot here on the show. If you ever got a season down to 140 games, maybe there's some easy spots to throw in a WBC. Right now, it's only every 4 years, too, or 3 years, whatever they're going with. I don't even know. I know COVID threw everything out of whack. So we'll see. I think they want to get back on the even years, so that's why they're going to go in 26. But I wouldn't waste too much brain power on something that happens every 4 years. That's where I stand on it. What I will waste brain power on is something I'm going to talk about here in my appetizer. It is the idea of saying, I don't need an SP1 on my fantasy team. I'll just get a couple of SP2s. I was thinking about this last night, and Ray and I will discuss this coming up later in the show. Tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern, Ray and I will get out of the way at 2 o'clock, and then we're going to turn it over to the BSN Fantasy Baseball Draft. This is the first ever BSN Fantasy Baseball Draft. It's going to air on Thursday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Last night we were putting this draft together, and I'm looking at the board and the picks made and all that fun stuff. And Ray, I'm starting to see, we know how pitching is and how arm injuries happen, and guys can go up, guys can go down. And we know who the best guys are. It's Garrett Cole, it's Corbin Burns, it's not Contra, Spencer Strider, it's these kind of guys. And those guys are all going to cost you, top 30 picks or so. Usually they're gone by the end of the third round. And I started looking at these boards coming together and seeing, Ray, guys that I still feel are really talented outside the top 10. Guys like Cease, guys like Bieber, guys like Wheeler, guys like Luis Castillo, Kevin Gausman. To me, these guys are all very talented. To me, these guys, I'm not predicting Cy Youngs, but these guys can all be good. These guys, to me, can all be SP1s. And Ray, the cost of those guys is outside the top 45. It's into the 50s. It's even into the 60s with some of those guys. And so I start looking at and saying, well, why not get like a load of hitting in the first 4 rounds? Just go with that, And I feel like, Ray, I'm still getting good pitching in rounds 5, 6, 7 if I want to. I think the hitting thins out a lot more. It's great to get Garrett Cole and Corbin Burns, but these guys take you away and take you out of superstar hitters, like real superstar hitters, guys that can help you in all 5 categories, guys that can put up monstrous home run or RBI totals. And Ray, considering when you throw in the fact that pitchers can just blow up on you out of nowhere, and this is almost like an argument from 2002, I feel like. I don't know, certainly from 2012, it's an argument. I kind of feel, Ray, like I look at Dylan Cease and it's like Cease versus Strider. Give me Cease if I can get him 30 picks later. Luis Castillo or Jake DeGrom. Give me Luis Castillo 30 picks later. And maybe it's been like that for a while, but we're now coming out of an argument that had been going on for a half decade of you have to have a pitcher early. And we've seen it in drafts this year. People are bailing on that idea. There are very few pitchers going in the first round. Yeah. Last night, I know in that BSN draft, we didn't get a pitcher till pick 17. And Ray, that's not happened in 5 or 6 years where you could wait until the middle of the second round for the first pitcher to go off the board. Yeah,
and again, this is an argument or a line of thought, is a better way to put it, that you and I have discussed, mostly me, for a decade. This is not a new scenario for me. And as time has gone by, I've continued to write articles with more depth and more details. As we've gotten away from the 220 inning pitch starter, and now it's 190 innings and it's 185 innings, you start to even lose the benefit you gain from the superstars because they don't pull away from the competition anymore.
Yeah.
The aces used to throw 40 innings more of elite work than the guy you get in the 5th round. Now the ace throws 10 innings more than the guy you get in the 5th round. He's still better, but you're only getting 10 innings instead of 40 extra innings. So that reduces the outlet.
A guy like Garrett Cole, Ray, used to be 225 innings, and now you're hoping he gets to 200. And he's the best in baseball, or one of the best in baseball for innings.
Yeah, and, like guys like Verlander and Scherzer, I haven't seen many projection models that have them over 180 innings. You know, I don't think anyone doubts their production on a per inning basis, but they're not going to throw 215 innings this year. It's not happening. So you lose that. Teams are more willing than ever before to go bullpens all across the landscape, even when the big guys are in the game. So the dispersion of wins is certainly tilting toward bullpens versus starters. So then we have to start being worried about the win column. Garrett Cole, a perfect example, a guy who goes out and dominates every year. What, he won 13 games last year? Okay. And then you start looking at, it's a 4-category position. You don't get saves. So if you don't get saves and you pitch well enough to win 16 games, but you only win 12, which happens all the time, you're a 3.5 category guy. I mean, you could take Marco Gonzalez and get 12 wins. So I've never really understood it. And I haven't even, through all this discussion, I haven't mentioned injury once. Yeah. And that's huge there too. So I think we as a group universe are starting to get what you and I have directly been talking about for years, Kyle.
Well, I know a decade ago, Ray, you would wait until like the 7th or 8th round, 9th round even. It was kind of, we'd be in all these industry drafts and it was like, how long is Ray Flowers going to wait to take his first pitcher? And it was always like 9th or 10th round.
Right.
Now, Ray, you are striking a lot earlier still.
Right.
And the guys I'm mentioning are still like 5th round, 6th round. So I don't know if I'm quite where we were a decade ago, but I just feel there are a lot of guys in the teens and even early 20s that I could say, man, they could be a top 5 dude.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a guarantee. And yeah, there's risk involved with any strategy. Newsflash, there's going to be risk. No strategy is perfect. Okay, I'm not saying this is the only way you can run your team. But Ray, I will say, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you win the league or not. All of us are going to be piecing together a rotation
100%.
And a bullpen all year long. All year long. Ray, I will make one guarantee here on March 22nd, 2023. Okay. Even those who run away with their league title, it's not even a competition. They take first place on day one, and they end up in first place on the last day of the season. Even they will not have the same 9 dudes pitching for them all season. So you're going to have to pitch, piece everything together. Whether you get Garrett Cole or you wait for, Zach Wheeler, you're going to have to piece things together. So I don't even know if the edge is there with going with that pitcher early. I mean, if Corbin Burns makes 30 starts, you win. Okay, right. Good job. You won that bet. But there's still a likelihood, probably 50% likelihood, he doesn't get the 30 starts this year.
But freaky fat guy who's been with us for a long time says Ray's first pitcher, James Shields. Yeah, going a decade plus ago. James Shields was on a lot of Rays teams, and it worked for about 4 years until he blew up that final year. You're totally right, and I think that let's be real here at BSN, right? Let's not couch it. Let's just be straight up real. When it comes to pitching, you win if your guys stay healthy.
Yeah,
that's
unless it's 9 awful dudes.
Yeah. I mean, if your analysis is halfway decent, right? Yeah. You're a C+ analysis guy with the pitcher. If they all stay healthy, you win. Yeah. I mean, they don't stay healthy. None of them. And it's, and I said this with the risk point. Everyone knows it. The risk of a pitcher, a hangnail, injured list, sprained ankle, injured list, finger blister, injured list. It's just on and on. These guys miss starts all the time. Even the best of them miss starts all the time. And when you then start talking about catastrophic issues, pulling an oblique or tweaking an elbow, and now it's 6 weeks, you just have a higher injury quotient with pitchers, or at least a longer time horizon injury issue with pitchers. It's just the case. So it's hard enough to predict the success of a pitcher. It's hard enough to predict victories. It's hard enough to predict health. You start adding this all together, it's what we talk about all the time. Don't take risks at the start of your draft. Take risks in the middle to later rounds, fine. But don't take risks with guys that are foundational pieces. Most people taking pitchers early are taking an exaggerated risk. 5th, 6th round, and I've done that myself in multiple drafts this year. 4 hitters, and then like 5th and 6th round, grabbing 2 pitchers. That's cool. But you got to get the guys that contribute offensively. Get the options that are 5x5 guys because they dry up pretty quick. Then worry about the pitching side.
Yeah. And it's a lot like running backs in football, and people might say, well, wait a second. You're telling me running backs are important, draft them early. You're telling me pitching's important. They're injured all the time, but you can wait on those guys. Why is that? And as I say so often, and people refuse to understand, it's a supply and demand thing. I mean, in baseball, there is a huge supply of pitchers. You may have to work at it, but you can find guys and you can find weeks and you can find matchups. You can go out and make trades. You can do that. Baseball is a game where pitchers can have 4 or 5 game runs and they just dominate. And then they go back to being a nobody. That happens. Whereas with running backs in football, there's just no supply. There just isn't. There aren't enough guys who get enough work at running back. So because there is such a finite supply of running backs, I'm going to do my best to try and get the guys who are a part of that supply. Whereas with pitching, everybody has to have a different pitcher every 5 days. And you multiply that by, 30 some odd teams, that's 150 starting pitchers. There's guys out there, even third and fourth starters who can't do what Garrett Cole does, but can get you a win, who can get you 6 strikeouts in 5 innings, who can give up 1 run in 5 innings. You can piece it together. So that difference between, hey, running backs are important, draft them early, and pitchers, they're important, but you can wait a little. It's a supply and demand argument between the two sports. Anyway, wanted to lay that out as an app, kind of an evergreen, if you will. But there's a lot of good pitching, I think. Guys, maybe the thing to say, ceilings. We got good ceilings from, I would argue, 15 to 20 pitchers, like Cy Young level ceilings, where it wouldn't surprise me if any of these guys went out and won the Cy Young. So that's a good thing. We can't, the health, I get it. But ceilings, what can these guys do? We got a load of great ceilings with pitching staffs. Main course for today on this lunch menu, can we get a turnaround? We continue our discussion of outfielder. Today, we are talking about the letdowns. I focused on about 8 or 9 guys in the outfield. All of them were top 50 selections amongst outfielders a year ago. Pretty well all of them maybe failed is too big of a term, but they struggled. Some of them truly failed. But some of the guys just struggled. We'll talk about those letdowns of a season ago and give you some insight into whether or not we will see a turnaround. Also, we'll continue our discussion of the AL East. We'll go team by team and hit you with all the storylines that matter from their offseason. We will talk on the Volpe decision that the New York Yankees are getting set to make. We'll update you on spring action going on in Florida and Arizona. Mentioned that BSN draft. We'll promote a little more of that. NFL free agency. We're finally kind of at a point where we can take a breath. So Ray and I will do that and kind of take a look at who's actually helped their fantasy value and maybe who's hurt their fantasy value with their new team for 2023. Also a lunch hunch before we get out of here. Bet du jour, which I know there's at least one person. At least one, Ray. Who is it? Legend Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Legend Tim is on the payroll or not, but the last 2 days.
It's actually me, Kyle. I didn't tell you.
Oh, is it? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. The last couple of days, Legend Tim has jumped into that chat room right at the start of the show and told everybody, hey, Kyle hit it. Kyle nailed it. Now, tomorrow, Legend Tim, you're not going to be able to do that, okay? And it's not because I'm going to lead you astray today. It is because my bet du jour is for tomorrow night's Sweet 16. So is that legal, Ray? A bet of the day to be actually for tomorrow, that day? Is that legal?
Well, since it's the tournament, I think we should allow it. Yeah.
There's a lot of games. There's a lot of bets. So
yeah.
There's no games tonight. Nothing college basketball. I could go, the NBA last night. I told you, man, OKC at the Clippers, take them. What was it? Jake Getzel with the shots. I'm kind of pushing my luck with the NHL and NBA. I'm going to back off. So I'll go to college basketball. Florida, Atlantic, and Tennessee. That's one of the Sweet 16 games tomorrow. I'm looking at an over-under on this game. The number is set at 130.5, which is a low number, but I am going to take the under minus 110. Tennessee, they can play some D. Florida Atlantic doesn't have any real scorer that you say, oh, that guy is a good bet for high teens, low 20s. They don't have that like star dude. They got a bunch of pieces that help on the scoring. When I see a low total and I'm still going to take the under, it's because one of these teams, and even Tennessee to an extent, doesn't have like that superstar scorer. So I feel good about that. Tennessee played Duke last week. The total in that game was 117. Tennessee played Louisiana last week. The total in that game was 113. Tennessee likes to muck it up, mess it up, slow it down, all these things. Atlantic would love to go up and down the court and get 70 points. I don't think they're going to be able to. Another factor here is Tennessee kills it on the offensive boards. Florida Atlantic's really good on the defensive boards. So maybe those two things kind of cancel each other out. All in all, give me the under. People don't like taking unders, but I'll take one here, minus 110 at 130.5. And that is tomorrow night in the Sweet 16. Dessert for the day. Ray, just for you, a little pet loving in our dessert.
Nice.
Labrador Retriever has been dethroned as the top breed of U.S. households. Ray, 31 years.
Wow.
It's been number one. 31. Now, I will tell you this. Your Australian Shepherd dog is not number one.
Never had a Labrador Retriever, golden retrievers, but never a Labrador Retriever. And it's shocking to me how amazing Australian Shepherds are, how well known they are. And they're like, you can't get t-shirts with stuff on them. Like, it's really weird. Like, there's all, like, you can get every animal every dog that's this big, you can find on anything. Poor Australian Shepherd, Kyle, always getting the shaft.
They're too big. They're too big. We like cute dogs, small dogs,
Apparently.
right? Dogs we can hold and cuddle.
Yeah, get a cat. But yeah.
That's what would you like? You're out and about a lot, dog parks and stuff.
Mhm.
What's the most common dog you think you see?
Around here, we see a lot of doodles, golden doodles. What kind? The doodle mixes. That seems to be what everyone. They're oftentimes crazy, like spastic, out of control crazy. So I don't know how they've been bred. I would probably say they're the highest around here, though Goldens are pretty close as well.
I would guess at dog parks, it's mainly bigger dogs, right? There's not a whole lot. Are there a lot of small dogs out there?
It all depends. It all depends on the owner. Some small dogs have big personalities, but generally, there's not too many Chihuahuas at dog parks.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. Well, what has dethroned the Labrador Retriever? We will tell you. See if Ray agrees. We'll do that coming up in our dessert to go. Finally, drink of the day, Ray. What do you have, man?
I am with my last. This is what my gal bought me, power drink at the market in the morning. Remember, we've talked about this. We were going out and she grabbed a bunch of things. I said, hey, get me give me some. And she comes back with like 5. Take a bag. Oh, I don't need a bag. And then she's carrying like 6 boxes.
Now, let me stop you here.
Yeah.
Does she know that one of the major reasons I guess you're trying all this stuff is for this show? Is she like becoming your shopper in place of you? Like, is she helping you with this segment?
I would say yes and no. The beer thing was her idea to get all the single beers and try them to see if I could, because she preferred me to drink beer than whiskey for some reason. I'm not really sure why. So
because whiskey, that means, Ray, you're going to throw lampshades over and get angry and you smell like an old man every day.
Yeah, apparently, right? So that was what that, but then it kind of became a little bit for the show. I don't know with this. It's like, I think she just she thinks I like it, so she goes for it.
I gotta get my wife on the shop. She goes shopping plenty. I gotta tell her, honey, Ray's significant other picks up him fun drinks every day. You gotta get on this. Help me out here.
Give me a Gatorade. Okay, cool. And then she comes back with like 6 drinks. It's like, remember we talked. Give me a 6-pack. Here's 3 6. I didn't say 6 packs. It's a pack. So she's really good about doing that. So maybe it's partly for the show. But this was the last of the, it's the last of the C4 energy drinks with 0 sugar. It's got, what is this? Carnosine, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, beta power. It's a performance energy drink that gives you superhuman performance. Superhuman performance. Superhuman performance.
This is only available for Bruce Banner. He's the only person that's supposed to drink this.
And also, they blew it, by the way, because I don't see Marshawn Lynch on this can.
Skittles! Wow.
How is Marshawn Lynch not the spokesman for C4 energy drinks? Like that to me is a big mess. I don't know if they reached out and they couldn't come up to an agreement or whatever. Everyone remembers, I think, that Mr. Lynch loves the Skittle. It was clear. I was kind of expecting it to be colored. It was clear. Wasn't terrible. Again, not my thing. I'm not gonna have another one of them. but it was better than the strawberry one. It was the Skittle one.
Now, I'm guessing Ray Flowers is not much of a Skittles fiend. Probably hasn't had any in 20 years, I bet.
I mean, if I choose, I prefer candy like that, Jolly Ranch. I prefer that to chocolate. But to your point, like I might have had like a Skittle pack at Halloween just because it was in the.
Yeah.
But I haven't bought a
what
pack of Skittles in forever.
Was this just like a straight sugar rush? I mean, what would Skittle, like they don't tell you if it's the lime Skittle or the grape Skittle or the strawberry Skittle. Is it like when I was a kid, Ray, me and my cousins, we'd get like, a handful of Skittles, throw them all in our mouth and make a big Skittle ball.
Right.
Is that what this tastes like? Is a big Skittle ball?
Well, just to be clear again, it's 0 sugar.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. Yeah.
It's
100% fake sugar.
You could tap into the explosive energy of the C4 to unleash superhuman performance and dominate life. So this is a serious drink. So I would say it was more. Honestly, did it taste like Skittles to me? Not in my brain. Again, I'm not a Skittle guy, so it tasted just kind of like candy. Like it didn't taste like I didn't pick up. Oh, it's strawberry. Oh, it's grape. Like
you finish it?
I finished it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did, and I put it in a jug, and you drink it over a half hour, and it the water dilutes in it a little bit. Again, it wasn't. I've had worse, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, it's a orange explosion of Skittles. It didn't taste like that. No.
Never has someone sold an item better than Ray Flowers when he says, "I've had worse."
Yeah, Kyle, unleash the superhuman performance and dominate life.
I mean, what the hell is that? What the hell is the FDA doing if they're not going to look at that and say, "Wait a second, this doesn't unleash superhuman performance"?
Carnosine has been clinically proven to fight fatigue and improve muscular endurance. Within drinks of downing the C4, you may feel a tingling sensation for the beta-thiolene signaling that your body is primed for superhuman performance.
Can I just say I don't drink anything that gives me a tingling sensation? Like
I can get a $10 credit if I join their club here. Look at that. I get $10 credit for
this thing is full of spider sense. That's what you're drinking.
Beta Power is clinically studied. It's naturally derived from betatin and is sourced from beets and helps support hydration, Kyle.
Oh yeah.
Because drinking 16 ounces of fluid doesn't help hydrate you.
Yeah. Beer helps support hydration. There is water in there somewhere. Anyway. I was just, I don't want to say I was complaining, but I was expressing the fact that Ray's significant other seems to be on a buying spree and helping him out in this segment. I get a lot of wonderful, amazing, beautiful things courtesy of my wife.
Good comeback.
Yet she has let me down on this drink front. I doubt she is watching, but honey, if you are, you can talk to me later tonight and let me know how much of a jerk I am. But I thought this would be worth doing because I don't believe, Ray, even though this is drink of the day, I'm going to kind of go into a wishy-washy gray area here.
Okay.
We've never shown a container in which to drink.
Okay.
A canister. Well, this isn't a canister. What am I trying to think? A delivery method to talk about the drink. So I thought today I'd take a break from the drink. And profile something that I think many people have maybe seen on advertisements or on store shelves, and they're wondering, is it worth a damn? So, Ray, this is the Ball aluminum cup. You've seen these things. They're like the Solo cups, but they're aluminum.
Right.
They're not plastic. They're infinitely recyclable. There is no superhuman performance here, Ray, but they are infinitely recyclable, is what it says. Now, these are not safe for the microwave.
Okay.
Don't put aluminum.
Unless you want to blow it up.
It claims that they could be put into the dishwasher. I wouldn't do that with these. They're fairly thin. But the big selling point, if it were true, is that it keeps your drinks cold. Keeps them really cold. A lot of people like drinking of these out of the pool, whatever, you're out of tailgate and that. So it's kind of for the sports fan, I think, to an extent. Better for the environment, infinitely recyclable, all that stuff. I'm not going to go off on a tangent about straws, okay? This is better for the environment.
I was going to ask you about straws, okay?
Well, and unlike the wooden straw, or the paper straws, right? This is actually a better environmental replacement than the paper. The paper straw sucks. But this is okay. The problem is, Ray, it's very overrated as to keeping your drink chilled. Okay, it's pretty overrated. You know, you do like a vodka, like a Cape Cod, like a vodka and cranberry,
Right.
throw some ice in there. It probably does better than plastic,
Nope.
but not by a great deal. And these they don't cost. I think you get like 4 for $1.
Okay.
Which, you know, people are say, "Oh, that's and it is nothing." I think 4 plastic cups would cost you 10 cents, maybe. So you're paying a premium, if you will, and that's fine. I would say, Ray, these are more for somebody who's trying to help the environment than somebody who thinks this is actually going to keep your drink colder. Because I don't want to say it fails miserably, but it wasn't much of a difference to me, and it sweats.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I don't want a sweaty. So it's a ever so slight improvement over the plastic Solo cup.
I was watching how it's made. It's like the Science Channel or some people probably seen it at some point. And aluminum is endlessly recyclable.
Yes.
You could just over and over again. So
I've got a great friend, Ray. I've known him since I was a little young tyke, and he works in the aluminum industry. He just actually started a new job in Louisville, Kentucky. He moved there this week, and he's working at an aluminum plant. And Ray, he's always swearing by it. It's the only product that if people would just recycle them, they wouldn't have to make anymore. They could just melt them. You can turn them into whatever the hell you want. I mean, it's sheet metal, you know, this kind of stuff, beer cans, and they don't lose their strength.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of energy that goes into heating them up and all that, but you're right. Infinitely, just like the
it's like it says, it's real. Yeah. How I've never had one of these. From feeling it and having, how long do you think it's gonna? I mean, is it?
I think it would last forever. It doesn't like
you don't crush it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I mean, you could obviously. I mean, I could.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't last long. Now, I think if you put it in the dishwasher and stuff, you're not supposed to use hot beverages either. But I mean, if you hand wash this thing, I don't think. I mean, if you use this once a week,
right?
And you hand washed it every time, it would last years.
Okay, so it's strong enough. It's not like a
it's not flimsy.
Okay.
It's that I guess is another bonus, you know. But I don't know. I think most people, right? Sure, the environmental stuff is nice and not thrown past. Okay, everybody likes that. But what they're trying to sell is that it keeps it cold.
Yeah,
your ice will last longer. And this ain't a Yeti, okay? Yetis don't cost a quarter.
They don't.
So it's fine. I don't want, you know, my buddy, if he were watching this, he'd be screaming at me, you know, don't badmouth aluminum and all that, but it's okay. Just give it, again, unvarnished here on Lunch Money. We play no favorites here on Lunch Money. I don't care if my best friend, one of my best friends gets probably a half a peso every time when someone buys one of these, but anyway, there you go. Kind of a loosey-goosey drink of the day. I'll be back with a drink tomorrow. How about that? Something good, something fun, something refreshing. Okay, let's take a time out. Lunch menu is taken care of. When we return, got a few more thoughts on the WBC that concluded last night. And we will begin our thoughts on the letdowns in the outfield from 2022. Is there a flip of the script? I'm talking to you, Cedric Mullins. Talking to you, Nick Castellanos. I'm talking to you, Miles Paper Straw. We'll discuss those guys coming up next on Lunch Money right here on BSN.
Talk sports with Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Bettor Sports Network.
Let me say something about Tiger. You know, Tiger has had to redesign his entire swing. Tiger has a difference in the length of his legs because of that horrible accident. You know, in golf, there's no like, hey, you can't walk the greens, you have to take a cart. So I assumed by day 3 on Sunday, you know, the inflammation would start. He took a couple breaks where they take care of his back a little bit, but it is fascinating watching him. So it gave me this thought, like, is he that skilled at golf? Or is this a mental thing of dedication and determination? He is so dedicated to the sport that no matter what, he's relentless to it. And the dedication and determination goes to the golf, the swing, the playing, the walking, but it goes to his overall health. The average person who doesn't stay in great shape, gets in an accident like that, goes through multiple surgeries, is not recovering and going out there to walk And that course has some pretty steep inclines, a lot of walking. I mean, how else could you factor these athletes, the Michael Jordans, the LeBrons, these players that just, their whole focus is really optimal health, optimal body skills, optimal. And then what comes next is being the best at what they do.
I think you just hit on why Tiger still has that drive. I don't know this. I don't know the man. It could just be love of the game. It could be, I want to make as much money as I can while playing. Could be all this stuff. But LA, a lot of people think Tiger Woods is the GOAT of golf. And I don't understand how you can be the GOAT of golf when you are 3 majors short of Jack Nicklaus. Okay? So, like LeBron, I don't think he cares what guys like me say anymore, right? He's past Kareem. He thinks he's the GOAT. I mean, he's third on my list. He's in the debate. Many other people think he's the GOAT. He's not my GOAT. You know what I mean? So I wonder if Tiger is there, like LeBron, like, I don't care what the pundits, what the barbershops say. I'm the GOAT. I don't have to do anything more. This is all gravy. I wonder if Tiger looks at it that way.
I don't know what Tiger's mindset is in the GOAT status, but when players talk about what it's like to be at a tournament, when Tiger's playing versus when he's not, they'll tell you that they're on the greens and they can hear the roar 4 holes over, and that there is nothing that compares to the excitement of when he's present.
Bettor Sports Live, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, exclusively on Bettor Sports Network. Or listen whenever you want on the app with BSN On Demand.
Who's hungry? Time now for Lunch Money presented by FantasyGuru.com. Here's Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers.
Yes, indeed. Up and rolling on a Wednesday. Again, Team Japan with the big victory last night. As noted, it's back in 2026. So if the excitement was too much for you to handle, you got a few years of rest now to get ready for the next WBC. It is worth noting, this big championship game. Kyle Tucker, Ray, was not in the lineup last night in the WBC. He's got an ankle injury.
Yep.
Now, again, is it worth pushing a guy even in that event, even in that game? Who knows? But that could be something. And, man, Houston doesn't need anything else. But that could be something to follow with a week to go until the beginning of the season.
Yeah, about a half hour ago, Chandler Rome, who covers the team, said that Tucker's scheduled to be at West Palm Beach this afternoon. He's going to get the ankle looked at. Their belief is he's doing better, and the training staff wants to look to verify that it's nothing major. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. It looks like it's probably not a big deal, but we'll get further confirmation of this, I would assume, this afternoon.
What could be a big deal, Juan Soto. Ray, we may get results today on an MRI done of his oblique. This happened, I think, in like a B game for Juan Soto a couple of days ago. The Padres immediately called it minor, but it has risen to the point where they're going to get an MRI. And Ray, obliques just, even minor doesn't sound good. It's just something that's difficult. And top 5, top 6, that's probably where Juan Soto is going in drafts. And I said the same thing with Yordan Alvarez. Like, you got loads of hitting talent at the top. Like, what are you differentiating with? Like, it's really tough. It's very difficult. Ray, if I hear Juan Soto, let's say they come out and say, yeah, it's minor, but we may start him on the year on the IL. But we expect him back, 7 days into the season. That's enough for me to go with other guys, That's enough for me to say, well, it's definitely Julio Rodriguez. Oh, man, I'm going to go Machado. I'm going to go Bichette even over Juan Soto. Like, the oblique, man, it's just something that can hang around and bother you. Soto had that calf thing last season that hung around. And I'm not saying I'm dropping him off my board, but again, we're trying to figure out what makes this guy better than that guy. If one guy's got a sore oblique, I'll drop him behind the other guy.
Yeah, it's really tough because I believe that Soto has got an argument to be one of the best hitters in baseball. I think everyone agrees with that. He's 24 years old. He's been tremendous to date. It's very likely he rebounds from a little bit of a down season last year. And he's got a great team, right, context-wise. So all the pieces are there for a massive MVP caliber type season. But and it's, we were talking about this earlier in the show. Taking the risk is fine, but is the risk in the first round what you want to do? No. I can't say that Soto is a risk at this point, but he's certainly trending in that direction. So you're right. It's not that I would, and I haven't done this in the rankings at fantasyguru.com. I'm not dropping him to 18th in the outfield. Like, I'm not going we could get news he's out for a month and then we have to reassess.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking at Juan Soto and Randy Arozarena, or Juan Soto and Bo Bichette and Randy Arozarena, Juan Soto or Freddie Freeman, like, you can start talking about going in other directions because of the fact that those guys, well, except for Freeman, may not be dealing with things physically.
Well, we may get that answer from the Padres today. So if anything comes out in the next couple of hours, we will make sure to let you know right here on Lunch Money. Had a question in the chat room from one of our regulars, Work and Grind, and he had asked about must-read baseball or football books. Now, I will tell you right off the top, I am not the person to ask this question of. I'm not a huge book person. Ray's a huge book person. Now, that being said, Ray, you're more into like the nonfiction side of
Right.
books, right?
Right.
So we'll let Ray maybe look up on his thing. I did go out and grab a few during the break and again, I do not have an extensive amount. I'm a magazine reader. I'm a history of the sport magazines, writers, and all that. But I'll throw out a couple of here. Okay. This one I read probably, it's been a decade ago. Forever Blue. This was quite good. This is about the Dodgers leaving Brooklyn and going to LA. Kind of a lot on the business side. And not, there's a little bit of the emotional side, but this was quite good. Kind of talking about the dawning of a new era in baseball, moving west. So that was good. One that I really enjoyed, and it's a little more current history, although I say current history, it's 45 years ago. Joe Posnanski, who's a really entertaining writer. He kind of bounces around. He's been everywhere, it feels like, but he really knows how to cover baseball. And probably 8-9 years ago, he wrote this one on the Big Red Machine. Joe's out of Cincinnati. So this is early 70s Cincinnati Reds. The Machine is what it's called. Really, really good. I don't do a whole lot of football books. This is a great basketball book. Tip-off. This is about the, the 84 draft and kind of how this is the Jordan draft, Barkley, Sam Bowie, all that stuff. This is quite good. Probably one of the most important drafts in the history of sports. And then things I like to read more. I got a couple of more, and then Ray, you can talk for a bit. This put out by Sports Illustrated, it's a collection, is awesome. This is like some of the best baseball writing you will find over the last 100 years. All the big boys are in here. It's great writing. It takes you through the history of baseball from, the early days of Sports Illustrated all the way through the end. And then another great one, Sports Illustrated, and this will get you some football. This will get you everything. I don't have the cover on it, but it's 50 years of great writing, Sports Illustrated. Say what you will about Sports Illustrated nowadays, which barely exists. I mean, it's not even within shouting distance of what it used to be. But there is some incredible writing over 50 years. I will say from this particular thing, there's a lot of Dan Jenkins, who's a legend. But Frank DeFord, there's a really long article in here, The Boxer and the Blonde. That is excellent writing. There is also some William Knack, who he covered a lot of Secretariat back when Secretariat was unstoppable. The writing there is incredible. But anyway, I would point those out. Again, Ray, that's why I just grabbed from outside the door here. So those are the ones I'd point out. Would you have any that you would suggest?
Yeah, I've got a bookshelf. You can't see it. It's actually the one up top that you can't actually see. I would say that Crazy 08 is a good book. It talks about 1908. It's 300 pages or whatever, but it's a nice book about the 1908 season. It's good read. It's tremendously funny. It's got all kinds of twists and turns. That's a good one for the single year. Looking up on my shelf, the Coopertown case, and what is the Bill James one? The Politics of the Hall of Fame, I think is the name of it. Those two are very good books about the history of the game. I think if you're talking about the fantasy game, you probably want to read Fantasyland by Sam Walker, by the way. I also have up there, which I think are excellent ways to look at it, the Bill James Historical Baseball Abstract. I actually have the original from 1985 sitting there on the shelf, and then next to it, the 2003 update or whatever. I think that's a good one. The Hidden Game of Baseball by John Thorne and Pete Palmer. They're the guys that did Total Baseball and came up the new encyclopedia Total Baseball. They came up with a bunch of ways to look at things. So the Hidden Game of Baseball. They also have a complimentary one, The Pitcher by John Thorne. John Thorne's now officially the historian of baseball. They actually named him that. Those are the ones I have on my shelf. I'm trying to think offhand if I have any other. Those would be the like the 6 or 7 ones that I'd recommend off the top, Kyle.
Yeah. The one to point out that neither you and I pointed out, and it's pretty well considered by everybody to be the best baseball book, if you will, The Boys of Summer by Roger Kahn, who Roger Kahn has a lot of great baseball books that he has written. Also, I mean, honestly, if you haven't read Moneyball,
I mean,
that's a really good book. You know, it's I think a lot of people have seen the movie, and a lot of people read it, of course, too. And I'll tell you another one. I don't know if it was a great baseball. Well, it was if you're a baseball fan, you'd like it. But it was something that I loved the uniqueness of it and the behind the scenes of it. It's a very quick read, but is it 3 Nights in August? With Buzz Bissinger, where he had full access to a 3-game series between the Cardinals and the Cubs. This is with Tony La Russa as the manager. Now, obviously, being in St. Louis, this book was like everything to people, you know, behind the scenes, but it really goes into how lineup decisions are made and how managers kind of treat things that happened years ago, and they still apply it to that weekend series. Kind of gives you and again, it's a bit self-serving. You know, La Russa, this great mastermind kind of thing, and Bissinger's a little hard to handle, but you just don't get access like that to a manager. He's very open about why guys are on the bench, why guys aren't playing, you know, talking about the season. 3 Nights in August was a very good one with Buzz Bissinger. So I'd throw that out too.
And one other one too. I don't think, did either one of us mention Ball 4?
No.
I mean, that's written in 1970, Jim Button. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I haven't actually read it, so I can't recommend it, but I know that it's one of those books that people obviously turn to, written by a former pitcher, of course.
And I'm trying to think of the one, there was one by George Will, like back in the early 90s. George Will, the political writer, but he's a huge baseball fan, massive baseball fan. He put one together. They're also, if you're into like front office stuff, and I've never read this book, but I know a lot of people love Lords of the Realm. It's from the mid 90s. And so it's kind of talking about the business side of baseball and kind of how that all comes together. So I'd throw out that. Heather, who's in our production side of things, she says Craig Sager's Living Out Loud. If you're into biographies, that'd be a good one. He, of course, with the MBA. And then if you ever need history books, Ray's your guy. I mean,
yeah,
Ray, you're reading like a history book a week, aren't you?
Yeah, I read a lot of those. I would also say The Science of Hitting, which isn't the history of baseball, but it's the history of hitting, kind of, by Ted Williams. For everyone that thinks launch angle was invented by, you know, J.D. Martinez or Trey Turner, go read a book written in the 1970s by Ted Williams. It basically says the exact same thing that everyone in Major League Baseball is trying to do right now.
Yeah, I will say the best sports book I've ever read, and this isn't even close, literally the most entertaining. It's not baseball, it's not football, it's not basketball. It is a book from the mid 80s. I think it was actually 1990. Among the Thugs, Thugs, which talks about hooligans in English football in the 80s. And it's a guy who threw himself into the world of hooliganism, wasn't a soccer fan, was kind of doing a sociological, like, who the hell are these people and why do they act the way they do? And he, in effect, learned that when you are in a group of people acting crazy, even though you have no intention of acting crazy, you will act crazy when everybody around you is doing that. So kind of like crowd surge, if you will, and how it can affect you. But that's literally one of my favorite. Among the Thugs, the author is Bill Buford. And it's long lost to history. I mean, like I said, it's 30 plus years old, but and you don't even have to like soccer to like, I mean, there's a lot of matches that he goes to and travels to, but it kind of gives you that idea of thug culture in sports. It did exist. It's a ton better now, believe me, in European soccer. But back then it was rowdy and all sorts of craziness. Okay, we'll take a timeout here. If Ray thinks of any others or I do, we'll pass them along. But we do want to get to those outfielders. Also, there's some news coming out within the last hour. Baseball is slightly tweaking their new rules already, which we knew this was going to happen. Are these big tweaks, small tweaks? Do they affect you at all, the fantasy player, the baseball fan? We'll let you know what they are talking about when we come back. Stay with us. More of Lunch Money on BSN.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Bettor Sports Network.
Calvin Ridley yesterday, he applied for reinstatement from the National Football League.
Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence. That is crazy potent on offense.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I mean, Ridley's great.
I think Trevor Lawrence is a guy I want in fantasy this year.
I think you're probably right. I think they're just going to get better and better. First off, Peterson's a wonderful offensive mind, a great head coach, and we've seen that and saw that this year as Jacksonville made it to the postseason. And Trevor Lawrence, anybody that questioned whether or not he could play in the National Football League or just how good he was going to be in the NFL, those questions were answered this past season as in the second half of the year. Statistically speaking, he was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. That's how good Trevor Lawrence is. You throw Calvin Ridley into the mix, he's going to be great. Yeah, I think Lawrence is a guy you want. I think Ridley's a guy you want. Clearly, Travis Etienne is going to be one of those early, first-round selections as well, being the dual-threat running back that he is, not only running, but also catching the ball out of the backfield, Keith, and the ability to take something small and take it to the house. Take a 5-yard dump pass, make a guy miss in the open field, and he's gone. I mean, you saw that with Travis Etienne this past season for Jacksonville. Yeah, sky's the limit. I mean, I think you're going to go from a team in the year span where you wanted no part of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you're looking at fantasy football to where you want as many Jaguars as you possibly can because they're going to be really, really productive. And let's see if they get their tight end back as well. Who had
Evan Ingram was great.
And Evan Ingram, who was great this past season.
Yeah. I mean, if they keep that whole core together, their offense is going to be one of the best in football. Like, I legitimately think that they could be one of the best offenses in football.
Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, then
and Ridley,
Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, a good offensive line, and you've got Doug Peterson being creative calling.
Right?
And you look at that division. The Colts are a mess.
Yep.
Titans
look like they're on the downslide.
Titans are on the downslide, right? That window is clearly closed. And then you got the Houston Texans.
Years away from relevancy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville could win 11 games next year.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Bettor Sports Network. It's always lunchtime here. Now back to Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers.
It is Lunch Money. Kyle and Ray hanging out with you. Hour number 2 of 3 full hours here on a Wednesday. Following us, you just saw that promo for Moose Keith. They're going to come your way after us from 3 to 5. The playbook then from 5 to 7 and into the evening on Bettor Sports. We love having you along for the ride. Ray, baseball is 8 days away from opening day. We've got some, I don't want to call them rules changes, but we've got those brand new rules with a pitching clock and all sorts of other things shifting in that. They've gone through about a month, not a month, I guess about 3.5 weeks of spring games. I would say for the most part, people are fine with it, growing accustomed to it. The players certainly are. The infractions on the clock are way down, so players are getting used to this. But we are getting news today. Who is it? Jeffrey Passan has some news that there will be some slight changes. Looks like, and nothing major here, but things to pay attention to. What do we got?
Yeah, simple kind of things. Like if the catcher end the inning on base or at bat, they'll give him a little bit extra time to get ready for the next inning. If the pitcher runs the cover first base on a ball to second base, whatever, they'll give him a couple of extra, seconds here. If a batter's knocked over on a brush bat pitch, they'll give him a couple extra seconds to get back up and get in there. They're going to look at the bat boys and bat girls because they're taking too long. So they're going to reassess the time. Get a dog. The dog runs out there, grabs a bat, they're out.
What is that? What is the bat girl? Is it minimum wage? I mean, they're like 18 years old.
New standards will be enforced for bat boys and bat girls whose ability to quickly retrieve equipment will help efforts to speed up the game.
Wow.
So you bet
We should have Batgirl and Batboy tryouts then,
yeah,
right?
you can't.
I mean,
If you got a knee problem, you're out. You can't be the
do
bad boy
you make
anymore.
the All-Star team if you're like the best bat boy in Major League Baseball?
I don't know.
Studious?
Look at that sprint
Wow.
speed. And then finally, this is the one that they're not changing the 15 and 20 seconds and the 8 seconds for the batter to get in the box. That's what we thought was going to be changed potentially. None of those are being changed. So the time won't be. The one change, and I'm going to read it here, and then Kyle and I, we can talk about it real quick. The memo addresses obscure issues, blah, blah, blah. The most important piece of the memo distributed was the league changing the replay review rules on potential violations of the infield shift, with the possibility of teams regularly issuing challenges after outs in the hopes that one of the 4 infielders was positioned with the foot on the outfield grass, which would negate the out and return the batter to the plate. The memo said on batted balls that the only position of the defending fielder could be challenged. So if you thought the third baseman was on the outfield grass, but the ball was hit to the second baseman, you can't challenge that with the third baseman. You can only challenge it with the guy being hit, because I think they're worried about teams, Kyle, challenging everything every time and making the game longer that way, I guess.
You know, I wonder, and I'm just thinking out loud here, Ray, because, you know, to clarify, only if the ball is hit to the guy that you thought had shifted too far can you challenge it.
Correct.
So that guy could be, as I see it, Ray, and maybe the umps would clamp down on this and say, stop it, or I'm going to throw you out of the game or something. But you could, for every pitch, Ray, still have that third baseman shifted. And nothing happens as long as he doesn't field the ball. So, okay.
That's what it sounds like, which is a change.
That's what it sounds like, yeah. So the next question is, well, why would a team do that? What's the edge? Well, Ray, if I can shift my third baseman to the other side of second base, and I can actually put my second baseman where I want him on the shift, you know, if I can put him even further towards the right field line or deeper at right, and all I have to worry about is, hey, if my third baseman can just keep it to a single, there's nothing lost. You know, even if he fields it, okay, we give up a hit, but I would have given up a hit anyway without that third baseman there. I can move my second baseman now and leave an even bigger gap. You know, I don't have that huge gaping hole up the middle, which people say, well, it's going to be, but it'll only be a single. And maybe you still get the guy to hit the ball where you want it at your second baseman. Again, it's advanced, and teams, you might say, well, that's stupid, but Ray, they're going to try it. People are going to do silly things. Everybody's looking for a loophole with these rules.
Yeah, and I wonder, because the way it's worded by Passan in his article, possibility of teams regularly issuing challenges with the after outs in the hopes that one of the 4 infielder was positioned with his feet on the outfield grass. So I assume they're still going to be very diligent about 2 guys on this side, 2 guys on that side of second base, and it's more about the depth.
Grass, okay.
That's my read of it. But again, I'd like to see further clarification. Yeah. This is not officially from the league. Maybe they'll be a little clearer with what they say. But clearly they're tweaking it a little bit and trying to find a happy medium, I guess.
What do we got? We still about 30 minutes shorter with spring training games. That's the last number I saw. I want to say late last week I saw spring training this year to spring training last year is about 30 minutes knocked off.
According to this article, it's about 25 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
So right around that point, yes.
It'll be weird, Ray. It will. I mean, you say it's not to get the game over, but it's going to be weird for me locally. It's a 7:15 start. Mm-hmm. That game's never over by 10. You know, they game usually 10:30 or so. But maybe now we'll be done by 10. I don't know. It's one thing, as we've said, on and on and on, to do it in spring training. It's a whole nother thing. And remember, with spring training, you've got a lot of minor leaguers who are participating in these games, even more so than usual because of the WBC, that are much more adaptable.
They've been using it for years.
Part of the game than a guy like Manny Machado, who we've already heard is not really interested in adapting to this part of the game. So we shall see. But hey, I applaud it. Got no issue with it. And you expect, Ray, I wouldn't even be surprised if we had tweaks in season. You know, it's a fairly dramatic change, and so you're going to see things, and people try to take advantage of things, and it'll be up to the commissioner's office to kind of clamp down on what everybody tries to get away with.
Yeah, and again, to remind everyone, the minor leaguers have been using these rules. They've been working with pitch clocks and stuff, so it should be less of a concern for them versus the 32-year-olds that have never dealt with that in their career.
Ray Flowers there, Kyle Elfrink here. So we got all the preliminary stuff, news on Juan Soto. If we hear any update on that oblique, we'll make sure to let you know. Want to move now to letdown outfielders, shall we? We've been talking about the outfield position throughout the week right here on Lunch Money, and yesterday was the surprises. Today, we go to the letdowns, and Ray, there's a lot of these, frankly. And like I said, not all of them were dramatic disasters that ruined your season. And oh my God, can you believe how awful this player was? Some were. Some of them did have injuries. A lot of times I like to avoid the guys who had injuries, but decided to sneak a few of them in here because I didn't think it was like, oh, they were so injury prone that they never had a chance. Ray, let's start with a guy who was outfielder 13 last season. And he is one of these guys who did not have a disastrous year, but he fell off in almost every single hitting category and really only saved face because he stole a lot of bases. Let's talk about Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles, who is still considered a very viable fantasy player. And, you know, those stolen bases certainly help. I think my bigger question here, Ray, is he had the magical 2021, you know, that bust through 21. And I guess the question would be, is that the bust through and now he just becomes a good outfielder? Is that kind of where you stand with Mullins right now?
Well, I think it's really interesting because you can say that he was a letdown last year. And if you're looking at his previous performance, that's an accurate statement. If you're looking at him, if you just were to say, hey, man, this guy stole 30 bases, scored 90 runs, you know, this is not a down season. It was just in comparison to 2021. I think that basically everyone, including us, talked last year about the likelihood of the home runs coming down and the batting average coming back. Now, you know, losing 14 home runs is big. You know, losing 30 points of batting average is big. But again, I don't think either number is shocking. I wouldn't be shocked if he hit 270 this year, right? Now, that's not 291, but I wouldn't be shocked if he hit 270. It wouldn't be shocking if he hit 20 home runs. It's possible. But he's just not a 30 home run guy. He's just not a 300 hitter. The benefit for Mullins is he's played almost every game the last 2 years, over 156 games both years. The real benefit for him is he stole 30 bases, then he stole 34 bases. And with the new rules in place, you got to look at him and think 40's in play. So 19 home runs, 40 steals, hitting 271, scoring 96 runs. Like, this is still a really good player, but I don't think he rebounds to 2021 levels.
I mentioned last year he was outfielder 13. Ray, this year he's 14. They're really, and again, maybe everybody expected the fall, like you said. But I'm surprised he's still that high because we're mainly talking about a good stolen base, good runs scored guy. He's probably average in the others. You know, the average is 270. That's fine. Home runs, 20. Okay. You know, the RBIs aren't going to be anything huge. I'm surprised that still warrants top 15 consideration in the outfield. If he were to fall, and again, everybody's saying more when they talk stolen bases. But, you know, Ray, even when there's not a rule change, we see guys lose stolen bases out of nowhere. You know, they're the same guy, but the year before they stole 35, and this year they had 21. What the hell happened? If he fell into the low 20s, gosh, I don't know if there's, I don't even know if he's top 25 in the outfield, is he?
Well, if he fell that way, it would be tough because he would definitely have to go 2020 then to really make us feel better about it. I think that, let's remember, and I said this, he's missed 9 games in 2 years, which is Iron Man for this day and age, which, you know, gives you some comfort there. I think the lineup should be improved with the Orioles. Everyone's talked about that. So that's a little bit of a benefit. You're right. But again, like when you look at the players that are being taken around him in ADP, I think you can make a case for guys to have more upside. I hate using that term. You know, more of an ability to reach a peak than Mullins. But Mullins still,
he's already reached his peak. I don't know if he's ever getting back, right? Isn't that kind of
right? Yeah, I think that's fair. You know, but I also think that, you know, what he does is not easy to find. If it's 18 home runs and 32 steals, how many guys are doing that? It's not easy to find. And again, it's very reasonable because he plays every day in an improving lineup. I think he gets 90 runs, which is another. So, you know, is he a complete player? No, but like the guy being drafted right next to him in the outfield right now is Kyle Schwarber. And we talked about Kyle Schwarber yesterday. Kyle Schwarber doesn't steal bases, doesn't give you batting average. You know, I mean, he's a flawed He's not a 5-category guy either, right? So I get your point. I'm way more in than out though with Mullins. I think that he's established himself at a level that's pretty darn good, and that speed piece helps elevate him.
You put it that way, Ray, like Mullins versus Schwarber. I agree with you. I'd go Mullins. I'd go Mullins over Adolis Garcia. Now, Corbin Carroll's going after Mullins. I probably wouldn't go there over Mullins. I'd just wait on Carroll, take a shot there. Next guy, you see him, Tyler O'Neill. That is our next guy. And Ray, he's also got a power speed component. Last year, he was being taken as outfielder number 16. Had injuries, and he has fallen to outfielder number 25. I see a lot of O'Neill, seen him a lot. And Ray, I am just convinced this guy can't stay on the field. And I get what he can be and like the raw tools, and he hits the ball hard and he runs really well, all that stuff. But he is just, proverbially speaking, too tightly wound. I mean, the guy is just too much muscle. For those who don't know, he's the son of like a Canadian weightlifter, like a championship weightlifter in Canada. He's always been a big dude, and he's always had injuries, muscle injuries. And Ray, I just think that's what his career is going to be. We had the season 2 years ago where he stayed healthy somehow, some way, but I just think it's too much of a challenge for him to get over 100 games per year.
Yeah, it's really tough because you look at a player that, what is he, 26? He's 27. He's 27 years old. His last full season 2 years ago, 30, he went 30-15, almost went 90-90 while hitting 286. Like, this is a tremendous fantasy season. Even though he had that success, you have to look that year in particular. He had a 31% strikeout rate, which sucks. His career strikeout rate is 31%. You don't hit 286 with a 31% strikeout rate. You just don't consistently. He's a 251 career hitter. I think every projection I've seen has had him 245 to 255. Like, everyone realizes he's a 250 hitter. And then you start talking about missing games. Could he hit 40 home runs? Everything possibly came together, yes. Is it much more likely he hits 23? Absolutely. Could he steal 20 bases? Yes. Is it more likely he steals 12? In my opinion, absolutely. So he to me is a player that, and we saw the peak, which could be reached again, but with the batting average concerns and with the health concerns, like, I look at Mullins and I feel very comfortable with Mullins. I don't feel comfortable with O'Neill at all. I think we have him ranked 31st, 32nd at outfield, something like that. And if it all comes together, it's there. We've seen it, but there are elevated risk levels with Tyler O'Neill.
Well, and the more he runs, the more you worry. You were talking about stolen bases. It's almost like, don't even push it. I don't need any more hamstrings, growings, all this stuff, calves. It's just like, stay put.
Yeah.
Which again would alleviate or pull away from his value. It kind of chips away at what Tyler O'Neill can be. Now, O'Neill had injuries last season, kind of par for the course. Mullins played and just couldn't reach epic heights. He was still good. Third guy we're going to bring up here as a letdown from last season is a player who played, Ray. He was out there. And if you told me, hey, we're going to get X amount of games from Nick Castellanos, I said, I feel very good about home runs and ribbies. I do. He's proven he can do it. Great lineup. Still a good ballpark. Ray, nothing from Nick Castellanos last year. It was really bad. And he saved some face in October with some big moments. But man, as a bat, it was painful because if you own Castellanos, you kept saying, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. He's too good. He's still playing. I see him up there and he's hitting lasers when he makes contact, but it just never clicked. And I know the big call on him last year was nobody in baseball was more aggressive. And he just swung and swung and swung, Ray. He never stopped swinging, which was maybe the problem with him.
Yeah, his walk rate wasn't down appreciably and his strikeout rate wasn't up appreciably. So it didn't lead to craziness, but you're right. The selectivity was an issue. He was someone, like you said, that basically, if you throw out the COVID year, and I hate to throw the COVID year out because it happened, but it was 60 games. For a while there, we all thought we were going to die. Like, it was just a different time, right?
No fans.
Yeah, it was just a different world. He was one of the more stable offensive performers in the game, right? Like, year after year, you knew what you were getting. And what happened last year? Nothing. And the concerning part about it is that, and part of this could be the selectivity issue, But his isolated power mark, which basically measures the extra base power you have, it was half, legitimately half of where it had been the previous 3 years, which is scary. And then you start looking at the StatCast data. He never had a lower exit velocity than he had last season. He never had a lower barrel rate than he had last season. He never had a lower hard hit rate than he had last season. When he hit the ball, he didn't hit the ball. So you pull back from all of this and you say, look, he's 31 years old. He's got a track record. He's on a good team. He's got a good ballpark. Clear your head, get away. You have to think a rebound is coming, but it's very difficult. I would firmly believe a rebound is coming, but it's impossible to get back to 2021 levels with the expectation. I think you have to be back toward 2019. And even if you go back to 2019, he hit 289 that year. I can't book him for a 289 average. So, you draft him, you expect 270, 20, 75, right? You expect that, and you hope that it's 280, 25, 95.
It's fairly interesting where he is going according to ADP, right? The other outfielders around him are trying to do the same thing as Castellanos. Yelich, Castellanos, Bryant, and Seiya Suzuki. They're all back-to-back in the outfield. Guys who, for different reasons were letdowns last year. Yelich, doesn't hit the ball in the air anymore. He stopped hitting home runs. Castellanos was bad all around. Chris Bryant had a bad back and failed miserably in year one in Colorado. And Seiya Suzuki couldn't get healthy and seemed to be a whole lot of, hype that he couldn't fulfill. Of those four, where's Castellanos rank for you in terms of the rebound capability?
By the way, Suzuki just got an update a few minutes ago. He's going to hit today in the cage and run the bases, so he's improving from the oblique issue. I heard Steve Phillips and Cody Decker talking about him and the fact that he gained muscle, and maybe that led to the issue with the side. We'll see. If I had to choose one of those guys, Kyle, I'd have Castellanos at the top of the list.
Really? Okay.
I would like to have Suzuki there. I really would, but the start of the season being delayed because of the health. Wait, who's the other guy? Christian Yelich, I would have. Sorry.
Well,
and
Chris Bryant. I'd have Bryant number one for me.
All right, I misspoke here. Let me rephrase. Bryant, Yelich, Castellanos, Suzuki.
Yelich? I'm out on Yelich, Ray. I'm done with it.
Yelich is going to – the thing with Yelich – and everyone's out on Yelich too, and he scores 90 runs and steals 20 bases. I'm just telling you.
But if I'm getting – what do you have, 14 homers? Something embarrassing last year with the home runs. No RBIs at the top of that order, and the average is pretty blah. Well, and if the stolen bases, I kind of think the stolen bases are coming down. I mean, that's like, again, everybody's predicting more and more and more. If I'm going to predict a guy with less that actually steals a base, I'll go Christian Yelich. He's just getting old, and the back just isn't right. The back just won't ever be right again, I think, for him.
He's the same age as Castellanos. I'm not disagreeing with your assessment of the 30 home runs aren't coming back. But I think, again, it's when you play every day. I mean, he was one run away from 100. He was one home run away from 15, and he was one
15. That's our standard.
No, but I'm saying he was one away from that. So if he had gone 15-20 with 100 runs scored, the perception would be a lot stronger than it is right now. But he went 14, 99, and 19. It's just the way the brain works. He was still a top 20.
The way the brain works, Ray, is they say this guy is 60% of what he used to be when he was winning MVPs. He's nowhere near that. It's like I think. Like rebound, you would never, just so I can confirm this in the audience. Christian Yelich, top 10 MVP candidate, not that kind of rebound. That's not happening, right?
Correct. I would agree with that. Right.
Christian Yelich is like a top 20 outfielder. I'm not buying that, but would you buy that?
I would buy that, yes.
Okay. See, I think Yelich is he looks so incredibly stiff. Like, I don't even know how he made it through last season.
Well, and again, just to point this out, I'm looking at the play rate right now. He was outfielder 22 last year. So again, he was outfielder 22 last year, and on the rankings over at fantasyguru.com, we got him as outfielder 22. Oddly, I didn't even know that. So I mean, and again, when you play every day and you rack up the numbers, they don't have to be sexy to stand out.
I really think he's not playing every day. I bet he is. I'm just going off the eyeball test, Ray, and the dude looks beat. And maybe I'll see something different this year, but he's had his back's been bothering him for 3 years now.
True.
I mean, it really has. And the strikeouts, there are at-bats where he just looks pitiful, like striking out and stuff. And I know he takes pitches and all that, but he's still striking out. You get him in a 2-2 count, he's finished. He chases high. I don't know. I'm out on Yelich. I would, in terms of quote-unquote rebound, Castellanos and Bryant, I like those guys a lot more than Yelich.
Like you said, you kind of have your choice because of ADP. They're similar-ish. So, if you don't agree with me like you should, you can agree with Kyle.
Let's go to one last guy, at least for this segment. We got a few outfielders later in the show. Now, this one's a full-blown bomb. This guy sucked. And I will let it be a reminder to everybody who is maybe drafting Astory Ruiz. Okay, now this guy cost a lot more than Astory Ruiz. This guy would run you as the 30th outfielder off the board last year. He's up in Cleveland. Miles Straw, who a year ago, Ray, was the darling of the stolen base. He'll just get stolen bases. But Ray, he had a 21 steals, so not the worst thing in the world. But Ray, it could not even cover up for all the other just diabolical numbers that he put up of nothingness. I mean, Ray, this guy, he made Billy Hamilton look like a slugger. And Billy Hamilton at least gave you 40 steals, I guess. Any hope for Miles Straw as a hitter? Any hope for him to get 35 steals this year?
Well, remember, too, I think it's very instructive with the case of Miles Straw. For everyone that's looking at John Birdie this year, we could see a very similar return from Birdie to what we saw last year. So be cautious there. Miles Straw, the problem with Straw is I'm very surprised. I know he's good defensive and all that. I'm surprised he played as much as he did last year because offensively he's useless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about the willingness of the Indians to say we'll take a little bit of speed and a good at bat and some defense, and if he doesn't hit, we're cool with that. How long will they be cool with that? I don't know the answer to that. I think it's very reasonable to expect him to steal 20 bases again. I think it could get, in the right scenario, he could hit 30. There's no doubt about that. But that's really the only number that pops. You look at his overall game. He makes nice contact. He takes a walk, so his on-base percentage relative to his batting average is pretty good. I think it's very reasonable to say he's not a 220 hitter. Let's call him a 250 hitter. But a 250 hitter with a 320 on-base percentage, hitting 2 home runs. So he's just not – you can draft him at his current cost, and he will return it. But who cares? Like it doesn't do anything for you. He's deficient in home runs. He'll be deficient in RBIs like he was last season. So the pluses he brings is really playing every day to help the run scored total and the steal total. I don't know if he can do that, and I don't think the two categories are worth taking him on your team overall.
Well, and they've got other guys they can turn to, Ray. Some guys coming up through the minors that they can make a move for. Straw defensively, I guess, is good. I don't think he's great by any stretch. He's living on speed is what you've got with Miles Straw. The other just kind of defeating fact of his profile is he's planted firmly to the bottom of the lineup. So, even those at-bat opportunities or plate appearances, which can lead to stolen bases, you're losing them that low in the order. You don't have, Billy Hamilton, he could at least lead off for a lousy team like Cincinnati. Now, eventually Billy Hamilton fell to like 8th and 9th, and that's when it totally fell apart. Yeah. As soon as he was removed from the top of the order, it was finished with Billy Hamilton. Miles Straw to me, non-factor. They're Ray, for years now, we've been trained, you got to get these stolen base guys in these big numbers. And I'm of the expectation there's going to be more stolen bases to go around. I'm also of the feeling, Ray, that outside of the legends, like a Trey Turner or Bobby Witt, like these guys that do everything, they can steal you bases and kill it. I'll be glad to take guys who do something in all 5 categories and get me 15 steals or 10 steals even. I just don't want these guys who all I care about every day whenever I pull up my team, did I get a stolen base? And that's a win if I get one, despite the fact he went 0 for 4 with another 0 RBIs, 0 runs scored, no home runs. I just can't take that over and over again with these stolen base heavy guys like Ruiz. I get it, Ray. I understand what people are making a play on. And we may get on it in the next segment. The guy's actually hitting the hell out of the baseball in spring training. So the hype is getting a little more steam. But I still think every day you're going to be looking at a guy who, if you got a hit, you probably got a steal. Okay. But if he doesn't get a hit, you're getting literally nothing. And there's not enough support elsewhere for me to like jump in on the Astori Ruiz game.
Yeah, I think to wrap it up too, like the John Birdie, Miles Straw, like that style. Oh, I got to get the steals. I don't want to do that. They're just not. They don't contribute across the board in enough. They don't. And especially if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to take that type of player, give me Quan, give me Horner, give me a guy that's going to hit 285 while doing this, right? These other guys, Dylan Moore, these guys, like, yeah, they're helpful because they steal bases, but like you said, they just don't do enough. So if you're going to take that skill set, a guy without power, at least try to make sure it's a guy that's going to help you in the batting average category as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You don't have to have power either. It can be, a guy Stephen Kwan, who can hit 300.
Yep.
It can be a guy who, just because he's at the top of the order in a good offense, scores 100 runs. I don't need 100 ribbies and 25 homers from my guy who steals 30 bases. Those are your superstars. But you say across the board. I don't even need across the board from these guys. Just give me half the board and I'll be happy. A guy like Miles Straw, you barely get going on the board, and then you just run into a brick wall, and it's kind of over because it's stolen bases alone. Outfielder 30 last year. He has fallen significantly into this season. Now, we have more letdowns to come, but when we return here on Lunch Money, we'll check in on some spring action, some news and notes. We had that story at the outset of spring training about Corbin Burns. He was very unhappy with the Milwaukee Brewers about arbitration and how that whole process went. Well, Corbin Burns has made a decision, and it's a decision that says, Milwaukee, I'm out of here. We'll tell you what that decision is next, right here on Lunch Money.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray. Weekdays at noon Eastern, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
Vladdy swings at the first pitch and lines it into right center.
How did a guy who was being selected in the first round pretty well everywhere last year, he proceeded to lose 33 runs, to lose 16 homers, to lose 14 RBIs, and to lose 37 points in batting average. Oh, and 184 points in OPS. He went down everywhere. How does that guy, Vlad Jr., still register as the #1 fantasy first baseman? Ahead of Paul Goldschmidt, who won the MVP last season. Ahead of Mr. Freddie Freeman, who does the same thing every year, which is hit .315 with 25 homers and 100 ribbies. Ray, it's like Vlad Guerrero Jr. had nothing to worry about. It's like they thought they were getting him and his dad, as you can see there on the photo. You get both of them when you draft him at #1. I'm just surprised, and it was not a bad season, but Ray, it was such a disappointment compared to what he posted in 2000.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. Vladimir Guerrero, in 3 of the 4 years, he's been average to good. He had one spectacular season. And we keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. The positives are the lineage, the positives are the skill set, positives are the StatCast data, which everything's like top 5% murders the baseball. The negatives are he has not hit 275 in 3 or 4 years. We keep talking about this too. He does not hit the ball in the air. It's remarkable, his ability to hit 30-plus home runs, given that he never gets the ball in the air. His ground ball rate last year was 52%.
Well, and we're asking the question, how is he still #1 at first? But what catches me even more so, Ray, is the overall. I mean, he's a first-round pick overall, and I don't think he has any business in the first round. I look at his profile, and there are so many guys going behind Vlad that just have business in the first round that deserve to be there. Freeman, Machado, Bichette, Rafael Devers, I think maybe Pete Alonso. You put Austin Riley ahead of him. If he gets 310, 30, 190, he's a first rounder.
I think the play with Vlad is the batting average because he hits the ball monstrously hard. I could see him hitting 320.
Can you hit 320 with a 52% ground ball rate?
You can, but it helps if you're athletic and fast. And
yeah, exactly. And I get it. His hit tool's strong, Ray, and he's good. It's funny his ground ball percentage is that high because on the occasions when I get to watch Blue Jays baseball, I don't see it. I see him hit the ball. And it's not really grounders. I'm surprised the number is that high. It feels like he stings the baseball, but I guess there's just no lift overall in his game.
It's just a little tweak to his swing that could really lead to that growth back toward where he was in the home run column. And I think people, he's done it. This is not hypothetical. He did it 2 years ago, and he's still just 23.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team where you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network. Bettor Sports Network. It's sports talk done better.
Here's Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers.
Keeping the groove going in hour number 2. Kyle and Ray with you on Lunch Money. If you've got any questions, thoughts for us, by all means, send them to us in the chat room. Checking in on some baseball going on today. We were just talking about Astory Ruiz. Ray, 5 stolen bases. That's great. He's hitting about 300 or so. How about this one? 13 RBIs for Astory Ruiz. It's in 38 at bat, so he's getting a lot of leash here with Oakland, as he should. That team's going nowhere. I just pulled up his ADP for this month. It's 242. What do you think of that number? Mainly a stolen base guy. We were talking about the danger there, but 242 is frankly the 20th round in a 12-team draft. Are you fine taking that shot on him in that spot?
Well, his ADP was 342 2 months ago, right? I mean, I wrote an article target him, and I want to say his ADP was 316 at the time I wrote the article, if I remember right. So Corbin Carroll's another one. These young guys, it's a reminder to people, if you're going to draft young guys, do it in February. I think that in the case of Ruiz, you've got the normal pitfalls. If he's on a team that's not very good, he's going to hit in the bottom third of the order, and we'll see, right? There's all of that. But I think that when you look at his game, it's very possible. I mean, it's not likely, but it's very possible he steals 30-plus bases. Even more than that is doable. I mean, we could be looking at 50 steals if he goes nuts. It could happen. And his bat is good enough that as long as he's allowed to play every day for the A's, and he should, his bat is good enough that he's not going to be a 220 guy with 3 home runs. Maybe it's 250 with 13 home runs, right? So it's not Nico Horner Kwan with the batting average, but it's decent enough. So I think at that price point, I'm still in. Although, again, I would have loved to have him 75 spots lower, which he was a month ago.
Another guy crushing it in the spring, Ryan Mountcastle, has a slugging percentage over 800. I think he leads the circuit with 7 doubles. He had another home run yesterday. That's in 36 at-bats. Certainly a forgotten guy, Ray. He's probably undrafted. I don't know. It kind of depends the league you're in and what you're looking for. But does that mean anything, or is it a hot streak? I kind of look at it and say, he's just a hot streak kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a hot streak kind of thing. I think it's very likely that we see an increase on the 22 home runs he hit last year. So maybe it's 26, 28, something like that. But, he's averaged, 87 RBIs the last 2 years. The team is better. If he went 25-90 this year, wouldn't be surprised. If he went 31-20, I'd be very surprised. So, yeah, I think that it's just a hot streak. It's good to know that he's ready to go to start the season. I think he's likely to be a little bit better than last year without taking a significant step.
He's always had that name that screams 3,100, Mountcastle, but I don't know if we'll ever get there with him. Finally, LA Dodgers center field job, if you care. Trace Thompson's now 2 for 24. Jason Hayward's 9 for 41. Now, Ray, I don't care. I'm guessing you probably don't care about either of these guys. Should we care? I don't. I like even David Peralta over in left field. I don't really care. And when was the last time we saw like starting position players for the Dodgers? And it's like, who cares? But kind of feel that's where we should be with left field and center field.
Well, if Miguel Vargas plays second base, which it seems like he's going to, and David Peralta's out there in left field, which it seems is likely, at least against the righties, doesn't Chris Taylor just play in the outfield every day? I mean, I know they've talked about moving him around and, playing him at shortstop, but they got Miguel Rojas there. I mean, do they just eventually make that decision and say, like you've said many times, our outfield stinks. Mm-hmm. Like, do we just stick Chris Taylor out there? So I don't know.
He stunk, though, last year.
What was that, Kyle?
He stunk last year, though.
He did too. Yeah, he did too. Though there are, I think, reasons to look at him for a rebound, at least somewhat as well. But yeah, it's the outfield's a mess. To answer your question, no. Thompson, Hayward, those are NL only options in my opinion at this point.
Mm-hmm. News out of Minnesota: Byron Buxton finally did make his spring debut. He was DHing, and the Twins will DH him a lot this year. That's the word from the Twins, Ray. And they say early in the season. I wouldn't be surprised if it's all season. Now that, I mean, this is one of those measuring things, right? Do we care enough about the outfield and the glove to risk the injury? Because that's really why he's DHing, I guess. Either this knee is always going to be with him and a problem, and they just want to keep his bat in the lineup. I kind of feel, Ray, like the 80 games in center field for Byron Buxton, they're done. I mean, maybe the Twins are making a kind of a dramatic decision here. This is a Gold Glove center fielder that they're claiming this is to start the year. He's going to DH but Ray, if he's healthy and he's hitting, are they going to risk it and throw him into center field? I mean, God, if you're the Twins and you've lived through 6 years of this guy, you're going to keep him at DH and keep him away from the outfield wall.
It's kind of like the Alberto Mondesi thing. Like, at some point, do we just switch how we're doing this, right? The thing with Buxton, though, in opposition to Mondesi, the thing with Buxton is when fully healthy, he's one of the most complete players in baseball. He's a good hitter. He's fantastic on the base paths, and he's otherworldly defensively. Like, his overall game is stupendous. Taking that away from him, it hurts your team. Now, again, having his bat in the lineup 140 times versus 92 games, okay, but it's a big change because he brings so much defensively. Do they also say don't run as much? Do they worry about that piece of his game? You know, blaze away when you're trying to score from second base, but don't be stealing second base.
Yeah.
And will he accept this? That's the last piece too. Will he fight it? Will he say, I got to play defense? I mean, this is a guy who literally runs through walls to catch fly balls. I can't imagine he's going to say, okay, cool, I don't want to play defense anymore. So there's a lot going on here, but it could be a change that helps out in the fantasy game while it kind of hurts the Twins a little bit at the same time.
Mets have officially sent prospect Francisco Alvarez to the minors. He had a bit of a rough turn in spring training, 3 for 23, no extra base hits. Probably killing the draft and stash model with him, right? I mean, if he had come in, Ray, and pulled the Volpe and like still went to the minors, people would, he'll be back up soon. I'll still draft him. But I guess with this showing, a lot of that has waned. I get there might still be those out there who, if they're in a 15-team mixed, they got to have 2 catchers. They might just take a shot on Alvarez and take zeros in that position for 2.5 months. It's not a strategy I love, and again, I'm talking deep league, 2 catchers, who's going to be that catcher for you anyway? Is it going to be a guy hitting 206 with 3 home runs and 11 RBIs through the first month of the season? So there might be that spot, Ray, and it's risky. You cross your fingers. You're hoping he gets called up. You're hoping he hits right away. But would you ever be interested in that kind of draft setup where you take Alvarez and you just take the zeros as your second catcher?
Yeah, I think it was Labor. It was either Labor or the FSGA last year. I did that. I took Adley Rutschman, 2-catcher, 15-team mixed league. So again, 30 starting catchers there. Who's the 30th starting catcher? Yan Gomes. So I took the risk. And again, I think Rutschman was with where he was at in his development and all that was one of the rare catchers you could even consider that. Now, the bat of Alvarez, I mean, it's damn good. Right? I mean, everyone raves, especially over the power that he has. You could consider doing it, but it's a long-term play, and you have to, as tough as this is, like, he's going to miss a month, you have to figure, as a minimum, and then is it 2 months, 3 months? Like, if you make this move, you don't then drop him on June 1st.
Yeah, you can't.
Then he gets called up on June 15th, right? So you have to be committed in it. You better be in a deep mixed league. You could do it, but it's very risky.
Every day that you move through the season is another day where it's more unable to cut them, like Ray said. You might be better served going to Arizona for your second catcher. Carson Kelly's going to be out with a fractured forearm. So Gabriel Moreno, Ray, who doesn't get talked about a whole lot with these young catchers, he was kind of lost in the shuffle slightly, I guess, with that big trade. Everybody's excited about Varsho going to Toronto. The Moreno and even Gurriel side of this deal kind of gets lost, I think, to a lot of people. But Moreno in a league of 15 with 2 catchers, absolutely. I think he's a pretty decent ad as a second catcher.
I've got him as catcher 13 over at fantasyguru.com. Yeah, he can hit.
Wow.
He can hit. He had over 300 last year in limited work with Toronto. In the minor leagues, he had over 300. He, in 2021, hit 373 at AA. I mean, he can hit. I've seen a lot of the scouting grades on that 20-80 scale at 70 for Moreno. Like, this dude can legit hit. It's remarkable, by the way, that the Blue Jays had 3 offensive guys like this at catcher. They still have 2 of them in Kirk and Jansen. But Moreno, he hits. He's just going to hit. And he's not going to be Is he going to be catcher 13 with this news with Kelly? Maybe. Maybe he'll get enough playing time. Maybe he'll get, 372 plate appearances and he's catcher 18, right? Like, okay. I would be shocked if he failed. I'd be shocked if he hit 230 with 6 home runs. I'd be shocked if he becomes one of those Yan Gomes type of catcher. I'm in on the talent of this youngster at the catcher spot.
Finally, some news off the field. It's been reported that Corbin Burns has, I don't want to say fired his current agents. He has switched his agents. And Ray's going to Scott Boras. So he was upset with how things were handled this offseason. I guess part of it was being upset with his representation. He just brought in the nuclear bomb of agents. When you make that switch and you're nearing, 2 years away from free agency, you make that switch, Ray. You've told your current team, I'm out of here. And you've pretty well told them, I'm not interested in anything. And I don't know if Milwaukee would be anyway, honestly. But, Ray, this now puts the writing on the wall. The Brewers, frankly, if things were to go bad this year, let's say, they've been strong for the last 6-7 years. They're a contender. They fight in the NL Central. They're a solid team. They haven't gone through the rebuild. Ray, if things were to dip an amount this year, I could see them invest in the rebuild. They've actually got decent talent in the minors. They aren't barren by any stretch. But Burns, if you trade him at some point this year, he's not a free agent he's got 2 more years. But, Ray, he could bring you back something pretty hefty. He would be the best pitcher on the trade market, and that might be something the Brewers would have to seriously consider.
Yeah, he was very diplomatic and well-spoken, but beneath that, he was super pissed at the way that the Brewers handled his arbitration hearing. He obviously wasn't pleased with his representation, and like you said, he didn't just go and get a big gun. He got the gun. He got the nuclear weapon agent. There's no chance, 0 chance, that he'll stay with the Brewers. It's impossible. There's no way they're paying him $200 million, right? It's not happening. So they have to make a decision. When are they getting out? Because, Scott Boras is calling him, and he says, here comes my 806-page portfolio on Corbin Burns and why you owe him $36 million a year.
Arbitration next year should be fun.
Yeah, arbitration next year is $26 million. Yeah, right? Like, it's going to happen. So, and again, this is the process, and, but when you tick off a player, which they clearly did, he's not having it anymore. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if they fall out of it this year, if there's not heavy speculation that they deal him this season.
And one quick ad, Mike Trout not going to play in any more spring training games following the WBC. Does plan to be out there for that preseason freeway series edition between the Dodgers and the Angels. But he'll take a few days off after the WBC kind of gets set up and ready to rock for the start of the season. Okay, we'll take a breather here. When we return on Lunch Money, let's get back to talking about the American League East, getting you caught up on some of the storylines for each of those 5 teams, the Red Sox, the Rays, the Yankees, of course, the Baltimore Orioles, and the Boston Red Sox. We'll get to those 5 teams and give a little bit of discussion on where they stand entering the season. We'll do it next right here on Lunch Money.
Washington Commander fans, it's time to rejoice. The day you've been waiting for seems like it's finally on the way. And you know what day I'm talking about. No, not the next time you have a parade down Constitution Avenue. That's still years away. But the day you get to say goodbye to the man who has owned that franchise since 1999. It's Daniel Snyder. You know it well because he's been the worst owner in sports in the 24 years he's owned that football team. That once proud franchise, the Washington Redskins, the Hogs, the championships, Doug Williams, Joe Gibbs. Now what you have left behind? Memories of Albert Hainsworth. How did that work out? Horrible free agent signings, not to mention the scandals. Just this past 18 months alone, the horrible reveal of the Commanders' team name when everybody knew who it was the day before. Oh, that Sean Taylor statue, that gimmick, that joke. How about the touchdown celebration of the mascot, the Tutty? That was horrible. You keep getting in your way, time and time again. The best thing you had for your fan base this offseason was hiring them an offensive coordinator. And now the later scandals, financial misconduct, all these things you got going on. Yet you want Roger Goodell and the NFL to look the other way while you negotiate your sale of the team on your terms. It don't work like that. Only person you really got on your side is Jerry Jones, and it's not going to be enough. So go ahead, Daniel Snyder. Do the right thing. Sell the team, go on about your business. Don't worry about this no more. The fan base deserves better. You've done a lot to tear this situation down. It's just time to walk away. Don't try to negotiate your own terms. Do the right thing and give the Washington, D.C. natives, give the people inside the Capitol Beltway their team back. You can find more contents like this at Bettor Network on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
It is lunch money. Kyle and Ray with you. Tomorrow, want to mention it again that we are only 2 hours. We'll take you up until 2 o'clock Eastern. And then when we sign off on Thursday, we will hand you off to the first annual. I guess I'll call it annual. Maybe I'll just say the inaugural edition of the BSN Fantasy Baseball Draft. Going to play it out this year. We've got a lot of our BSN personalities that'll be a part of that draft. That is tomorrow starting at 2 o'clock. We'll go 3 hours, take you all the way up to the playbook starting at 5. So get ready for that. Should be a lot of fun and pretty unique. You know, a lot of times you'll hear draft on the radio or whatever you're used to. But here at BSN, we're able to kind of always leave the board up. So as you follow along, it's very easy to look at the video and to see that board and to see the teams coming together. So do check it out if you haven't had the chance. If you are unable to catch that live tomorrow, you can always go to bettorsports.com, and within the Bettor Sports Baseball Preview, that will be featured alongside Ray Flowers, Adam Ronis, and others who are breaking down players for the upcoming year. So do check it out. Totally free for all of that, bettorsports.com. Question in the chat room, Ray, we were talking about those sports books, and they were wondering again the title of the fantasy book that you had pointed to.
It's written by Sam Walker, and it's called Fantasyland, a sports writer's obsessive bid to win the world's most ruthless fantasy baseball league. So it's Sam Walker Fantasyland. It's fantastic. It's got a lot of people that you hear on this network. You've heard on SiriusXM stories about their lives, how they put teams together. Nando DeFino's featured in that, who you hear all the time here. So, yeah, I would highly recommend it as a nice history of where it is and how an outsider kind of got involved and became somewhat fascinated with the sport of fantasy baseball.
Kind of focus on Tout Wars, correct? With that book, it's a lot of Tout Wars personalities, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I know there's a large section with our buddy, Lar Michaels, who's since passed away, the Zen Master and all that. But, yeah, it was Tout Wars that it was about. So it's really interesting. At least I found it that way. But, of course, I work in the industry.
Yeah, well, you're interesting too, Ray. No doubt.
Oh, thank you.
That's probably been good 10 years, maybe even longer, 15 years. I think 2007. Yeah, so about 16 years there. Before my time in Tout Wars, I'm guessing. Were you around probably a little bit before your time?
That was right. Wars? I think it was a little before I got invited. Yeah.
Right. Probably 09, 2010, right there. Yeah. Would be the call. Okay, let's get back into things here as we continue our divisional previews on the show this week. We're tackling all things AL East, and it's time for some off-season storylines just to kind of tell you where the teams stand. I mean, we focus a lot on the players and the fantasy aspect and all of that, but of course, part of baseball is how good are these teams? You know, where are they going? What are they trying to do? So, Ray, we got the AL East this week, and we've been doing this with every team in each and every division. Kind of updating you on what was the storyline in that division. And we head to the Boston Red Sox to begin things here. And, you know, I feel like lately the Red Sox have kind of become a running joke, you know, in some parts, even for their fans. They're like, just let down. What are we doing? What's the plan here? And a lot of that continued in the offseason when they pretty well let Xander Bogaerts walk away. But then, Ray, they did make a fairly significant commitment to Rafael Devers. They said, hey, we want you to be the centerpiece. They gave a huge commitment. What they wouldn't give to Bogaerts, they gave to Rafael Devers. And I think for most people, it was a sign of, hey, we're at least trying or we want to do something. But making Rafael Devers your guy, are you confident in that call? I mean, he's good. He's really good. I don't know if there's superstardom in the future for Rafael Devers.
Well, I mean, you look at the Red Sox. These are the guys they lost to free agency: Bogarts, Rich Hill, Michael Wacha, JD Martinez, Nathan Eovaldi, Tommy Pham, Matt Stram, Eric Hosmer. My God, they're just bleeding players. And the answer to all of this is, Jorge Alfaro, Masataka Yoshida, and Cutter Crawford. Like, it's I think that for the fan base, for the expectations, all that, I think they really don't have much of a choice here. Because you look at this team, I mean, what other direction do they have? You look at their offense, what other direction do they don't have one.
Are they, well, here would be the question. It's like, okay, you're the Red Sox, you got money. You'll probably go after free agents next year. Like, your rebuilds don't take like Baltimore rebuilds.
Right.
They're not going to take that long.
Right.
But I guess my question, Ray, is when we get to that point where they're the Red Sox again, is Devers like, you think he can be the centerpiece of an offense? Like, is he that kind of guy, that kind of bat where he's at in his career and kind of where we profile 3-4 years down the road?
He's only 26. So, this could take 4 years and he's still 30, right? I think it's, let's take away defense. Let's talk about the offense. If we talk about the offense, I think he profiles in a very similar way to Manny Machado. Okay, and we've seen Manny Machado get paid. We've seen Manny Machado be the star of a team, all that kind of stuff. Again, Machado can run a little bit. He's much better defensively. I'm just talking about offensively, though. I think that we can look at Devers, and he's a consistent 280, 30, 95 guy. I think he's that guy offensively. So the way the sport is, the way guys get paid, I think he will be the centerpiece for the Red Sox or someone else. He's going to get paid. He's going to get a lot of money. He's going to be very effective offensively. So I think, and again, I think the Red Sox really, I mean, they've bled so much here. And you look at this team, I mean, they don't have, like, Alex Verdugo is their next bet. They don't have anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They would have nobody offensively to have their offense built around if they don't sign him to this big term extension.
Moving to that team I mentioned, Baltimore, we're not out of the rebuild, but we're starting to turn that long corner. And we saw that pretty aggressively taken last year with Baltimore. And Ray, now we're kind of settling in and saying, okay, the wave is about to arrive, and we're going to get our first look at what we've been hearing about for like 2-3 years with the Orioles. Rauschman, Henderson, Rodriguez, DL Hall is in there. I mean, they've got some guys coming up. Are they ready for prime time in your book? I mean, last year at this point, we said, they're going to maybe win 70 games. And then they finished over 500. And now, Ray, I think the expectation is at least like 500 and maybe a shot at getting into the high 80s with the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can make a case. It's a tough division, right? But you can make a case that they could win 85 games. I think you can also make the case that maybe it's 77 games. You know what I mean? It's like, I think they're right there around 500, plus or minus, depending upon health, depending upon how the youngsters evolve, depending upon their willingness to make a move. Would they make a move on the trade deadline if they need to? Can John Means return and be a top of the rotation arm coming back from Tommy John surgery? So there's a lot of uncertainty here, but it's a great collection of young talent, some of the best in baseball. They've got the talent on the pitching side. They've got Bradish and Grayson really leading things there. They've got Henderson, Rauschman on offense to really excite people, the youngsters, beyond the Mountcastles and Mullins and all these guys. So they really have a ton of pieces. I would peg them at about 500. And again, say it's a plus or minus depending upon how things go.
I keep looking at this rotation, Ray, and you look at it, and honestly, it looks on the surface like a glance like one of the weakest rotations in all of baseball, doesn't it? I mean, Kyle Gibson, Cole Irvin, these it's a tough road to travel, Ray. I mean, they're not ready for an AL East title, so you don't want to go out and spend $30 million a year on Jake DeGrom. I get where they're at, but that rotation is, to me, pretty below average, right? I mean,
well, yeah, and that's the thing, right? So if everyone plays to their expectations and to their talent levels, this is a good group. Is that going to happen? Is Grayson Rodriguez going to be that guy over 100 innings, over 150 innings? We don't think it's 150. Let's say it's 120. Let's say he's that guy. DL Hall is supposed to be part of this rotation long-term. Yeah, where's he at? Is he out of the bullpen, right? So we can't count on him right now. You look at John Means, who I mentioned. John Means is, he's a top 75 pitcher probably in the majors, maybe even higher than that. Maybe he's a top 50 guy if everything comes together. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's going to miss half the season. So that's 3 guys that theoretically could be your 1-2-4, 1-3-4 in a rotation. But, and so then you have to fill in with the Irvins and the Gibsons of the world. And you're right. This is a team that might have to hope they can win games 8-7. And that's not necessarily what you want to be. And don't forget as well, Felix Bautista on the back end's had some health issues here in spring. Yeah. He's had control issues for almost his entire career until last season. He's been a little spotty this year in the limited work in spring training. So yeah, like I said, 77-85. Again, I think that's kind of where we're at. But if it was 73 games, I couldn't say I'd be shocked.
I think the pitching for the most part overachieved last year. And if that comes back, I think that's where the disappointment lies. That these young guys, they can hit and the future's bright and all that, but I don't know how you survive with that pitching staff for a year. Somebody's got, like Gibson's got to pitch like a 15-game winner, out of nowhere. Grayson Rodriguez has to be the real deal when he shows up, for, I think, this team to hang there. Speaking of pitching, that leads us to Tampa. We know what Tampa's famous for. Tampa's famous for the opener. Even more, the whole city, they're famous for the opener. That and I guess their championship title town, Lightning, Bucks, and all that. But Ray, the opener, like it's a slew of guys. Like, what are we looking at? 5 guys there. That's usually what you see in the box score of a 6-1 victory by the Rays. They still use 5 guys to get that 6-1 victory. But this year may be different, Ray. Now I say that, and we've already got an injury with Tyler Glasnow. But, Ray, it kind of seems that perhaps the opener's dead in Tampa. You've got McClanahan. You sign Zach Eflin. When Glasnow's back, he's not an opener. He's a pitcher. I think Springs and Rasmussen are both kind of pitchers, starting pitchers. Is the opener dead in Tampa?
Well, I was all set to basically say yes, like you're suggesting here. But then the injury to Glasnow, and it's like, Chirinos is in the mix. Patino is in the mix. They've got, Taj Bradley, who's a great prospect and everyone's excited about for the future. I don't think he's going to open with the big league club, of course. But they've got options, and they might piece together that 5th spot until Glasnow's back. But if the guys are healthy, and again, Zach Eflin, too's had some health issues, but McClanahan, Rasmussen, Springs, Glasnow, Eflin, I think they might be done with the opener. Now, that's not to say they won't use one. That's not to say they wouldn't slot him in as a 6th starter, to give guys rest. And they're very creative with that stuff. But this is the most complete starting pitching staff they've had in a few years, where you can certainly lay out an argument that they don't need to use an opener, something they're so famous for.
Tell you what, I'm looking at projections. Rasmussen and Springs. I know those aren't normal everyday names that many of us use in normal back and forth talking fantasy baseball. But Ray, both those guys are getting a little bit of hype, from certain circles of the industry. What about Springs and Rasmussen? Do you prefer one over the other? How do you see those 2 guys?
I think both of them are very solid. I'm very comfortable with both of them being parts of anyone's pitching rotation. I'm a little more on the Springs train than I am on the Rasmussen train. Obviously, Springs will need to do what Rasmussen has done, is that is continue to push the workload up. He threw 135 innings last year. Let's get him to 150 this year. I think Springs is a smidge more talented. It's not substantial, but a smidge more talented. Both guys are very solid in the strikeout to walk ratio categories, so they don't beat themselves very often. So I think that, ideally, if you're in a deeper, like 14-team league, like you can do Springs Rasmussen as your 4 and 5 and feel really good about it. 3 and 4 might be a little bit of a stretch, but it's something to pull off potentially if your team is strong in other spots.
Let's go to the big boys in the AL East. New York Yankees are next as we go throughout this AL East division, talk about the offseason storylines. And I think a Yankee fan would sit here and say, successful, man. We added these 2 guys, or we added one, we kept another. We got Aaron Judge, and we brought in Carlos Rodon. We spent a ton of money. But you see that big question mark right in the center, Ray. And here's the question. Have they gotten any better? You bring back Judge, cool. Rodon, you spend a ton of money on, but are the Yankees any better? Last year, remember, they pretty well flamed out, and that's kind of been their MO the last few years is they're a good team, but when the lights go bright in October, a time they used to just dominate, they kind of just huddle into a corner and disappear.
I think it's tough to say. I mean, Harrison Bader going down, that's a loss. Now, it's not going to be long-term, but that's a loss. A good defensive player brings offense. Rondon and Montas, I think, are the bigger hits, right? Because obviously those are two of their top 5 starting pitchers. You can argue that those are, two of their top 3 if you wanted to get aggressive and throw Severino as 4. And I think they don't have the issue in the rotation to the level of the Orioles, but there's concerns here. Cole, I think, is what he is. Severino, we anticipate, who was really good last year, anticipate a larger workload and it working this year, which is fair, but it's been a few years since we've seen that. Domingo Germán, I think, is a 5 who's being asked to be a 3 or 4. Cortez has been a little bit slow starting here. Schmidt, where's it? Big arm, but where is he at? Montas, is months away from a return with his shoulder. So are they better? They've got a talent infusion, and they're willing, as we've discussed, to let guys like Peraza, Volpe, Dominguez have some run here in spring. So I think that overall, I'd say slightly better than last year, but I think they do still have concerns for a Yankees team that's always obviously trying to win a World Series.
Will we get more than 20 combined starts from Rodon and Montas? I'd take the under.
20 combined, I'd take the over.
Okay. 25 then. Under?
Well, see, look, I'm if I had to guess, I'd say 32. I'd go like 20 and 12 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot higher than I'd go.
Yeah, but
I'm kind of done with Montas. It's like a half dozen starts, maybe.
Like, I'm looking at some waiver wires because we have waivers running in some leagues here this weekend that I'm in, and it's like Montas is out there, and I'm like, like I'm in leagues with IL spots. It's like, do I really want to? Maybe I just pick up Drew Smiley, right? Like, he's healthy now. So I agree with you. Montas is a total uncertainty, and I'm not drafting Carlos Rodon. So I've got him ranked over there at Fantasy Guru. Everyone can check it out and all that. But Ray Flowers is not drafting Rodon with the issue with his arm.
And again, nobody's saying they're bad. They're still a good team. I mean, hell, they've got power in that lineup. They've got youth in that lineup. They're a little long in the tooth with guys like LeMahieu and Donaldson and Rizzo, even Aaron Hicks. Stanton's getting up there in years. I mean, they're not in their prime. Let's say that. But Ray, well, like we say with the Mets are in this world, the Dodgers are in this world, the Yankees are in this world. If you're hanging around come July, they'll make the moves they need to. They'll pay to get these guys. So I'd be stunned I wouldn't be stunned if they missed the playoffs. I would be very surprised if this team missed the playoffs. Helps now that you get 7 teams into the postseason. And if they do miss the playoffs, Brian Cashman's out of a job. I think that's fair to say. Because if they miss the playoffs, it's going to be because Rodon doesn't pitch. It's going to be because Montas doesn't pitch. It's going to be because Josh Donaldson, who's making like $18 million, doesn't play. LeMahieu, who just got re-signed last year, he fails again. And it's going to all land on Brian Cashman's lap. Aaron Boone's probably out of a job too. That's like, that's how you can go, Ray, from like, you guys should win. But if you don't, everybody's out. See you guys later. And Cashman's been there, my God, 25 years. It's pretty insane how long he has been there and hasn't had a title lately either, but it's still held on to that job. Last team in the American League East, my team that I would predict to win the AL East, Toronto. And the storyline here, Ray, improving outfield defense while also changing the outfield. Check it out. There's the construction. And it may be a little difficult to see, but I mean, that's the field without the turf, but they're doing some pretty massive construction. What's interesting about these outfield dimensions, Ray, it's not so much like they're shrinking the field and pulling all the walls in. It sounds like, from what I've read, like we're going to have just up and down in the outfield walls. Like there is going to be nothing that is uniform in the height of the outfield walls. Like it's going to be 8 feet here, 10 feet here, 12 feet there, 8 feet here, 6 feet here. I mean, I don't even know. It's a jigsaw puzzle, I guess, that they're putting in the outfield. And to that puzzle, they've added Kevin Kiermaier, who's considered a very strong defender, Dalton Varsho, who's considered a strong defender. They've moved George Springer over to right field. They've gotten rid of Teoscar Hernandez. They're trying something. There's some master plan here with what the Blue Jays are doing with the ballpark and with the outfield.
Yeah, normally we see an outfield on a chart. It's like this, right?
Yeah.
Theirs is like it's crazy. And the left field line is the same distance, but the wall is up. The right field line is the same distance, but the wall is up. The power alleys changing depth, the wall height's changing, straight away change. Like it's every part of the field has changed. And we joked, I did it as my appetizer one day. There's like 10 different zones now, which are open, general admission. You can buy tickets, and here's a patio for drinking. Here's a patio for video games. Like they're going for the fan experience, which is cool, but it's really changing the dimensions of the park. And everyone is expecting it to be better for offense. We don't know. I mean, we always talk about here in San Francisco, it was 309 down the line in San Francisco. Barry Bonds, everyone's going to hit 700 home run. Didn't happen, right? So it's 420 out in right center. But it does appear that it's advantageous to the offense, the changes that are being made. And because of the unevenness of the outfield, having improved defensive play is important, because you don't want to have that ball hit the thing and go flying over here and it's an inside the park home run because you played the bounce wrong. So they have tried to guesstimate the best way to handle this defensively, and they've made a move to bolster their outfield defense. Varsho and Kiermaier greatly improved their outfield defense.
Springer over in right field too. I look at that lineup, Ray. It's hot. It's good, man. I know Atlanta's got a claim, and the Mets have a claim, and the Padres have a claim. If it came together for the Blue Jays, that's a rocket of a 1 through 9. and Kiermaier's part of it, and Merrifield's a part of it, but those guys are hitting 8-9. So it's not like they're make or break kind of things. Like if Whit Merrifield could somehow get back to hitting 290 as an 8 hitter, and I don't know, Kiermaier, I've given up on. He ain't staying healthy, so I wouldn't even count him. And that may come down to figuring out who replaces him and how they adjust. Because Ray, I get it, Kiermaier can play defense, but they're gonna have to switch this up. This may last for 6 weeks before he trips over a bag and he's out for 7 weeks. They've got to have a plan at the ready for when Kevin Kiermaier does eventually go down.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Biggio can play some outfield. They can't move Brendan Belt. He's first base or DH. They can't move him to the outfield. They've got Danny Jansen who can DH or catch. They can't move him to the outfield. Kirk can't be moved to the outfield. So you're right. It's not that, oh my gosh, our 9-hitter is a 9-hitter. Well, that's not the end of the world, right? So it's not like they got to add an outfielder that's going to hit 275 with 20 home runs. But when the injury to Kiermaier occurs, it weakens them defensively, and then they'll have to mix and match it on the offensive side.
That is a look at all 5 teams in the American League East, the offseason storylines. We've got more to come on those 5 teams later in the week. We'll take a look at some under the radar, maybe overlooked fantasy assets for each squad. Take a time out here. When we return, we told you, about an hour and a half ago about some letdowns in the outfield from last season and kind of gauge their prospects for a turnaround this season. We're not done with those letdowns. There are still more guys to point to and more guys to wonder about. Can they figure it out and return to prominence in 2023? We'll hit those names coming up next right here on Lunch Money.
The Playbook with Fensty and Ronis, presented by FantasyAlarm.com. Weekdays at 5 Eastern.
People are always very critical when it comes to fantasy baseball. I would say this, and I'm a big fantasy basketball guy. I love fantasy football. There's no fantasy sport that's even close to being as hard as baseball. The season, having to figure out, especially if you're playing weekly, which I don't like to play. Weekly with the 2 starts, having to look at the schedule and everything. Bro, I mean, you play in basketball as well. There's no fantasy sport that's harder or more involved than baseball. It takes forever. You take a whole night to do your fab on Sundays.
Yeah, baseball is the most challenging, and I think that's why the popularity has gone down. People don't want to work. They don't want to put in the time. There's a lot of strategy that goes into it. You have to know the player pool. That's why I love doing these 15-team, 50-round drafts. I mean, 750, 800 players. You go to all the minor leaguers. I took Spencer Strider last year in my first draft Champions League in round 40, and that turned out to be a phenomenal pick. So it puts you on to knowing everything about every team. And yeah, it's a lot of work. So I definitely think that it's a challenge, and I just feel like people don't want to put in time and work anymore. I'm not saying fantasy football is easy. It's not. But you cannot tell me that fantasy football is more difficult than fantasy baseball. I play both sports. I don't have an allegiance to either one. I love both. I play both. But, fantasy baseball is a grind, man. You got to put in months of preparation. Spring training is important. They helped me get Carlos Rodon a couple years ago. I was not on him until the spring, seeing the velocity and the changes. So there's a lot of things you can discover in the spring. And this is the first real full spring training that we've had in years. Now, there is the WBC that is going to cut into it a little bit, and some guys will not be at camp, but the spring can help you discover. And again, you're talking about, even if you're in a 12-team league, I mean, you're probably going to have 23 to 30 roster spots. And then the 15-team leagues and the mono leagues, I mean, you got to know a lot. I mean, it takes a lot of skill to win a fantasy baseball title. We've seen it, right? You can have like an average player win a fantasy football league. Like, we've all been in leagues where like, yeah, this guy's not that good. He's probably going to win a championship at some point. Things break right. He has a great draft, picks up a player off the waiver wire. That's not happening in fantasy baseball, man. You do not see bad players win fantasy baseball championships. You just don't. It's a 6-month season. You know, you can't afford to take a week or two off from Fab. You can't do it. Last year, say you took off the week where Taylor Ward was the big pickup. You lost a player that was a contributor most of the season. I know we had a couple of down periods, and Taylor Ward was a player I added in multiple leagues, but you can't take that time off. You can't afford to miss out. And, you know, every little detail is important. So I know fantasy baseball is not as popular as it used to be, but I personally feel it's because people don't want to work hard. They just don't. Everyone wants the easy way out now. They want easy access. That's why people don't read anymore. They want a quick video. Fantasy baseball is a lot of work, trust me. But you know what? When you win a championship, it's really gratifying.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network. Whether you collect sports memorabilia, fantasy championships, or winning bet slips, talk about it on Bettor Sports Network.
Now back to Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers.
Each and every night over on the Bettor Sports app, which is new and improved. Make sure you update that app, and you've got the best version of our BSN app to give you a great listener experience. But every night on that app, usually like 7 o'clock. Tonight it's at 7:30. We have Bettorcast for you. Tonight we are featuring the Warriors and the Mavericks. They will be playing in NBA action this evening. What is Bettorcast? Well, it's a chance for you to enjoy the game, watch it in the comfort of your home, or even if you're like hanging out at the bar and you're watching the game. What we've got is an ability, a chance for you to kind of sit there, enjoy it, and have a community that you're enjoying the game with. Answer questions, some Q&A, predictive questions. You can win $100 cash to the Bettor Sports Memorabilia Shop. So if you've never checked it out, tonight might be the night. If you're an NBA guy, there's not a ton going on a Wednesday. You know, there's no baseball yet. NCAA tournament isn't until tomorrow. So you've got nothing to worry about on that end. WBC is over. So check it out tonight. Have some fun. Maybe meet some people in our BSN family, and you can enjoy the Mavericks and the Warriors in a very, very different way. Okay, Ray, let's get to our lunch hunch, a chance for you and I to throw out some long shot bets. What are you feeling today? You still putting down some preseason baseball money?
I am, Kyle. And we've discussed this. You've actually talked about them a lot. And I think you even discussed this at one point. And I wanted to get involved. So what did I do? I said, all right, I'm going to take a look at the AL West. And here are the odds for the division winner in the AL West. The Astros are the favorite at -175. You and I have talked about that a lot. That seems really aggressive. Mariners are next up at 320. Angels are next 750. Rangers are plus 850. And the Athletics are plus 25,000. Don't place a
You're
bet
going
on
A's?
that.
You're going A's, right?
I'm going A's. Yeah. $1 to win 25 grand. No, I'm going Mariners plus 320. I think you can make the case that the Mariners, even if the Astros are healthy, it's going to be a battle. And you start looking at the Astros, and Altuve's out, and Colors is out, and Alvarez's hand issue, wrist, whatever. You know, it's like, I think when we talk about a -175 for the Astros to a plus 320 for the Mariners, the smart money, obviously, the bet to make is on the Mariners, and that's the one I'm taking today.
Yeah, I love the odds there. I like the Mariners. My hesitation, Ray, is I think everybody kind of feels this way, even though the odds say no. I mean, Vegas is telling you, it's Houston. It's Houston. It's Houston. Those odds are off. They shouldn't be that heavy towards Houston. I agree Houston's your favorite, but I would say it's more like -140 instead of the minus 175. So from the aspect of getting value, I still think Seattle's there. I don't know if we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with the Mariners, and I'm right there with you, Ray. I like this team. I love the pitching staff. I really like the bullpen. Like, it all seems to be there. But it's worth noting, last year they got a chance to take on the Astros in the playoffs, and they just got blown out. I mean, it wasn't really I don't want to say it wasn't a series. The Yordan Alvarez, a big home run off Robbie Ray. That last game was a pretty good one there in Seattle, but they got swept. It was 3 games and done, and it's just a good team, Ray. Defensively, offensively, pitching wise, I think they're built even a little bit better than Houston, and Houston's been battling injuries already. So there's a gap here, and I think those odds are off. I totally agree with you that. I think it's a pretty good bet. I've got a bet for baseball coming up this season. It's plus 1,800. And obviously, this is not a good bet. Let's not be mistaken here. Anything at plus 1,800 is not a good bet. But those are the odds you're going to find when you're talking about award winners or when you're talking about category leaders. So for those who are really into man, let's just swing for the fences, you can get a lot of good players. I mean, guys who are all-stars, and you're going to see plus 1,000 next to their name or plus 2,000. Because quite often we think, well, nobody's going to hit more home runs than Aaron Judge. I mean, have you seen Aaron Judge? And so you got all these really good home run hitters behind him that can hit home runs. And you get great odds on those guys. And obviously you don't want to get carried away with these kind of bets, but you can make some good coin on it. Ray, I'm going to go with most wins in the American League. Or actually, it's Major League Baseball. This is most wins in Major League Baseball. And this is a category, we say it every year with every pitcher. Can't predict wins, right? Can't predict that here. What I like about this pitcher is the odds are one thing. They're plus 1,800. Secondly, he's a veteran who the last really 3 years, he had injury issues early on, but now he appears to be very healthy. He's been making starts. He's eating up innings. He plays with an offense that I just noted earlier could be one of the top 2, 3, 4 offenses in baseball. He usually always goes 5 innings. This guy's always taking the ball every 5 days. Kevin Gausman is my guy, plus 1,800. That is about, I want to say without looking, maybe 8th or 9th, on the board. I am not someone who's really keen on Gausman. He's not like a target of mine, but to go back to earlier in the show when I was talking about all these good SP2s, he's one of them. And he's never been a big winner in his career. Even last season, I think it was 12. The year before was 14. That is still 26 wins in 2 years, which isn't awful. To see him get to 17 or 18 wouldn't be a shocker. He was very good. Like his FIP, his fielding independent ERA was strong. Strikeouts to walk, he does not put guys on base. So I think these are all things where I'm going to give him the shot. Toronto's bullpen's good, not great, but it's good. So Ray, at plus 1,800, I'll go with Gausman to lead baseball in victories.
I mean, innings, offensive support, history. I mean, I kind of look at him and think it's 12-19. And it's like, I mean, we saw Kyle Wright get 21 last year. Like, things happen too, but Gausman will certainly, as you laid out, give himself a chance to win. His offense should be supportive in that endeavor, and I don't mind that at all.
Isn't it funny you mentioned Kyle Wright led baseball, 21 wins, and Ray, I wouldn't have even guessed that if you'd asked me who led wins last year. Like, that one is so far off the reservation, and nobody talks about Kyle Wright. Like, this guy dominated a category, and he's like the 4th pitcher you talk about on the Braves right now. It's
well, he just came back from the issue with his shoulder, and they were slow playing it, and he finally started the other day. And, I mean, unlike a lot of the other youngsters, he had innings built up too. So then it's like, what's going on? So I think there's been a little reluctance because everyone logically says, well, okay, he has another good year. He's winning 15 games, right? So we're seeing a pullback there. And then there's the shoulder that's a little bit of a concern. But yeah, he was not, he was someone that the last year before the season began, people really started talking about. Prior to that, they weren't. And they've been pretty quiet on him this year, a little concerned with his health, I guess.
Yeah, almost mute, I think, coming into this year. And he did make that start. It wasn't a very good one the first time out. So we'll see where he goes from here. And if he's going to be set to go at the start of the season for the Braves. That is the lunch hunch for today. Let's switch gears and go to the outfield, talking about that position throughout the week right here on BSN. Today we're talking about letdowns in the outfield. And Ray, we hit on some names already. Guys like Mullins and O'Neill, Castellanos, Miles Straw was in there. A few more names to get here. And I will say almost to a man of these 5 names, like the previous guys we talked about, Ray, like you can still say, Mullins is fine. Or, hey, if O'Neill gets 140 games, he's going to be good. Castellanos, you were pretty confident in a rebound. These 5 guys, Ray, I don't know. I don't know about any of these guys. We start with Akil Baddoo. Let it be known that the first mention anywhere this year of Akil Baddoo, I don't care what show you listen to or what network you listen to. I don't know if outside of a Tigers preview they've mentioned Akil Baddoo. Ray, last year, the 32nd outfielder, and how quickly things change in 12 months. Now, you were utterly cold on this dude 12 months ago. Yeah, I remember you and I talking about an article featuring Baddoo, and you just couldn't piece it together. It's done, right? I mean, even in Detroit, where he could play, but he's not anything worth having, is he?
Well, I mean, I think that, he stole 18 bases a couple years ago with the new rules, with playing time, 20's in play, right? So he can hit 10 home runs, steal 20 bases. That's in play. Is that likely to occur? I can't say it is at the moment. And I also think that, last year we saw the strikeout rate increase. We did see the walk total increase, though, too. So he kept kind of that same, strikeout to walk ratio going on there. The StatCast data is really weak with him. So you have concerns about playing time. He doesn't hit the ball extremely hard. Strikeouts are up a little bit. Yeah, he's got speed. Yeah, it could happen. But in a mixed league scenario, yeah, I'm definitely not looking to target him at the draft. He goes on a watch list once the season begins.
127 at outfield is his ADP. That is a dramatic fall. Trent Grisham, last year, outfielder 36. Ray couldn't even hit 200. And in fact, I think by, 186? It's just a disaster. I don't, sometimes we've got guys, they're counting stats, like Baddoo. His steals can save you. Ray, I don't know if anybody can save you from a 186 average. I don't know if there's a number that can. Is there? If you're hitting 186, everything's going to be suppressed anyway. Yeah. But even if you stole 35 bases, I don't know if I could put up with a 186 hitter.
The good news is the expected numbers last season say that he should hit 204. So Kyle, there's hope. He 204. Yeah, 204. Now, talking about StatCast data, it's what he did last year: exit velocity, launch angle, hard hit rate, barrel rate. It was all the same, or actually better than 2021. Okay, so they're okay. You look at the strikeout rate; it did go up, yeah, but it was 29%. I don't think that's who he is. I think he got in a funk. He was dealing with some lower body issues health wise. I think it's very reasonable to expect a rebound. He's going to play almost every day. He plays good defense. He's still going to be out there for the Padres. He's going to hit in the bottom third of the order, so that's not going to help anything. I think he can go 15-15, but it could be an extremely unsexy 15-15 where he's hitting 238, with 70, I take that, 60 runs scored, right? So he'll be better than last year. I think it'll be closer to his 2021 effort. But I don't see him surpassing his 2021 effort.
He is 79th right now amongst outfielders, and it's mostly uninspiring down there. I mean, you're looking at Avisail Garcia, Andrew McCutchen, Grichuk, Duvall, Charlie Blackmon. It's like pick your poison kind of thing. These are all bench outfielders. 15-15 sounds good for a bench outfielder, though. So maybe that would be something to look at. Moving on from Grisham, we mentioned his name earlier, Chris Taylor. Last year, he was a top 40 outfielder. Now, I get it. He's got second base eligibility, so you may be more willing to use him at second base. We chose him for the outfield because we didn't choose him for second base, but he does fit in here. Ray, it was bad, but I guess, like we said, outfield's a mess in LA, and this guy has a pretty big contract. Mm-hmm. Last year was the first time I would say since he got to LA that he'd been down. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of goodwill built up for Chris Taylor. I don't mind him. I mean, the eligibility really helps. That is one thing that if he's even decent, and you're in a daily league, you can spot Chris Taylor and feel good about it. I don't know if we have an everyday starter here, but I think you could have a contributor to the bottom line for your fantasy team.
Yeah, second base outfield eligibility is really nice, especially like you said, in a league where you can change your lineup daily. That's worth paying the extra dollar, the extra round. I mean, really, in most instances, it is. Even last year, he still went 10-10. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. 2 years ago, he had 20 home runs. He's hitting that level multiple times. He's one of the players that you always find a reason not to like him, and in the end, he's getting his 475 plate appearances. Right? He's aging. He's not likely to get back to 2021 levels, but the utility he brings and the need, at least right now, that the Dodgers have for him to be in the lineup every day suggests he's worth adding, but you don't pay a premium to do it.
And Ray, we're going to go through all these guys, and they're mostly, blah, bench picks.
Right.
But just the simple infield thing would almost boost Taylor ahead of these guys, just because if, we talk about a ceiling, that position would be a part of that ceiling. Is, if he hits, great, but I can also use him as a second baseman, as a middle infielder. These other guys, if they hit, it's great, but you're still kind of limited, with where you could use them. So it might be an advantage to take Taylor. Another guy in the same region, he's going in the 70s amongst outfielders this year, Marcell Ozuna, former MVP candidate, Marcell Ozuna. People might forget that COVID year, Marcell Ozuna was crazy good for the Atlanta Braves. He hit the hell out of the baseball. Ever since then, Ray, it's one issue after another. It's injury, it's stuff off the field, it's suspension, maybe it's an attitude, whatever. Last year, he did hit 23 homers, and he did that in 470 at-bats. So he's not washed up with the bat, Ray, but this guy's career has been so tough to project and to predict. It is extremely volatile. And it's not the worst pick because I still think, Ray, he might be in a decent spot for at-bats with the Braves. Like, if he hits, I think they'll use him. If he doesn't, he could get released, though. I mean, that's kind of the two tandems we have here. He could be an all-star, like we've seen before with Ozuna, or he could be looking for a job come June 1st.
Yeah, I think it's not easy, but it's definitely doable to sit here and say, listener, 23 home runs, 75 RBIs is happening. I think it's and then it's also could be playing out the way you suggested, which is he doesn't have a job. It's a very weird spot he's in. Speaking of the expected stats, you look at what he did last year. The batting average was 30 points higher than it really was. The slugging percentage was 60 points higher than it really was. The WOBA is 40 points higher than it was. I mean, and all of these numbers would bring him back to being that 25-85 guy that hits 258, right? Which is not great or whatever, but it's there. I think that if you're in a deep mixed league, he gets drafted. If you're in a 15-teamer, if you're in a 12-teamer, he's probably at the top of the free agent list kind of thing, He and Eddie Rosario, both interesting. Two guys there looking for rebounds. Rosario had the eye surgery that apparently made a big difference. But Ozuna doesn't run. I don't think he's a batting average guy, but he has been a pretty good run producer for the majority of his career. And given the cost right now, I'm not going to shy away from adding him to a roster if you're okay with rostering a guy that's not a very good person.
Yeah, well, and the other problem, Ray, is in years past, he could be a run producer because if he was healthy, he'd bat third, fourth, or fifth.
Mm-hmm.
This year, that's not really happening.
True.
The Braves have kind of moved on and said, you may play, but you're going to hit seventh.
Right.
You're not going to play and hit fifth. Or hit third. So that would be the other knock on Ozuna is even if he kind of found a bit of it, those home runs are driving in one guy instead of two or three guys. That's kind of the issue maybe you have with Ozuna. Last guy, he was outfielder 46 last year. A couple of years ago, he was the top hitting prospect in baseball. Ray, now Dylan Carlson is a bit of a mystery. A lot of people think he should give up switch hitting. He hasn't done very well from the left side. And really, God, you look at advanced analytics sometimes for guys, Ray, will this help them? Well, they're pretty dead with Dylan Carlson. And I don't know if he was ever right last season, but it's been pretty messy. We thought he'd steal bases. He doesn't. We thought he'd hit falling out of bed, coming into the big leagues. He hasn't. You see it on occasion. I mean, he's got the moments that shine. Right now, he's pretty cheap. There's a lot of discussion about how secure is his job. Where do you stand on Carlson this year?
Baseball America, Baseball Prospectus, and MLB Pipeline heading into the 2021 season, which was just 2 years ago, all had Dylan Carlson as a top 20 prospect in baseball. When you're a top 20 prospect in baseball, you're supposed to be unerringly good. You may not be great, you may not be a superstar, but you can't fail. And he hasn't failed. He's 24 years old, but he certainly has not moved forward. Last season was a disappointment, as you suggested. And the guy that all the scouts were looking at, the 2020 guy, which was kind of where everyone thought he'd eventually be, just haven't seen that guy.
8 steals in 3 years.
Yeah. We just haven't seen that guy. And it's not about the collection of the pieces. It's about it all coming together and gelling, and it just hasn't. There's a lot of talk about where he's going to play defensively and all that kind of stuff. So he's kind of at a crossroads, at least with the Cardinals organization, because I feel, and correct me, Kyle, if you feel differently, but I feel like it's got to happen this year, or Cardinals say he's a fourth outfielder, or Cardinals trade him. Like it's that time, even though he's only 24. There is nothing in the data that stands out that says it's happening this year. It's more about the skills and the pedigree than it is the data itself, Kyle.
It was, gosh, how long has it been now? 18 years ago, 19 years ago, where the Cardinals had a similar outfielder who came to the big leagues with a ton of hype, best prospect, hitting prospect. He's going to hit a ton. He was not a disaster, but he wasn't Darryl Strawberry either. He was just a guy. And after about 2-3 years, the Cardinals traded him because they could get a pitcher. That trade made many years ago was made for a pitcher who is actually still pitching for the Cardinals. They gave up J.D. Drew for Adam Wainwright. I bring that up, Ray, because the Cardinals, again, I'm close to the situation, so I follow this, but they have one pitcher under contract for next year. It's Miles Michaelis. Or maybe it's Matz. Check that. It's Steven Matz. He's the only guy in the starting rotation under contract. So if they get to the end of the season, I could very easily see him flipping Dylan Carlson for hopefully the next Adam Wainwright, if they will. So I think it is kind of a do it now or forever hold your peace with this organization. And they have guys on the come, guys who are knocking on the door of the big leagues. So it is going to be important for him to get going. Who would you rather have, Jared Kelenic or Dylan Carlson this year?
With the spring we've had and everything, Kelenic. It's not, I still have confidence that Carlson can find it, but I'm more confident in Kelenic right now.
I'd go Kelenic as well. Those are letdowns in the outfield from last season. See if any of those guys can figure it out going into this season. We will take our final breather here on Lunch Money. On the way back, not only some dessert, but also some NFL, including another wide receiver who has found a home for 2023. That wide receiver signing with a team that is still looking for a quarterback. Really looking for a quarterback. Begging for a quarterback. Aiming for one quarterback. You probably know who that team is, but who's the receiver going to that team? We'll tell you next, right here on the Bettor Sports Network.
Monday Night Rants with Edward Rouse on Bettor Sports Network.
Do you believe in the Madden curse? Do you think that's a real thing?
I did. Now, I don't think it's as big of a deal anymore, but it was a real thing for a solid 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it was Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson, Peyton Hillis.
LT was never on the cover. I know that.
Was he not? I thought he was one. Okay, well, you do know all the covers of everything.
Yeah, okay. So if you want, I could do this real quick. So Garrison Hurst is the first official Madden cover athlete, 1999. 2000, I believe they still put John Madden on the cover. And then 2001 is where it all started. So 2001, you have Eddie George. 2002, Dante Culpepper. 2003, Marshall Falk. 04, Michael Vick. 05, Ray Lewis, first defensive player on the cover. Okay. 06, Donovan McNabb. 07, Sean Alexander. Okay. 08, Vince Young. 09, Brett Favre.
Okay.
10 is a trick one because it's
no way you know.
And Larry Fitzgerald. 11, Drew Brees. 12, Peyton Hillis. 13, Calvin Johnson, I believe so.
You're right.
14.
No way you know all this.
14, also a trick question. I believe that's the Madden 25 cover, and it's Barry Sanders. Unless you got it for the new consoles, in which case Adrian Peterson
Oh my God.
was on the cover.
You're not cheating. You're not looking at.
Swear on my life. Swear on my life.
Okay, keep on going.
15, you have Richard Sherman.
Okay.
16, hold on. 16 is Odell Beckham.
Okay.
16. 17, now this is the one I get mixed up because 17 and 18 are back-to-back Patriots.
They are.
17, I think, is Gronk, and 18 is Brady.
You are correct.
19 is Antonio Brown.
Correct.
20, Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my goodness.
21, Lamar Jackson. 22, Brady Mahomes. 23, John Madden. Yeah, dude, I'm a cover nerd when it comes to this stuff.
We now know, but that was really impressive. I don't know how.
Thank you.
That's literally 29 of them or something like that. Wow, that is. You did not miss a single one, and you even got the special editions where they had 2 people on the covers.
Monday Night Rants on Bettor Sports Network.
Lunch Money, where we don't take your money, we make you money. Now back to Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers.
The opening song from the first ever album of Block Party. Maybe one of the best debut albums of all time, if you want to check that out. Block Party, Silent Alarm. We welcome you back to Lunch Money here on BSN. Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers hanging out with you again tomorrow. We're just a couple of hours. Now, we are still set to have our little draft with Rob Povia. He's going to join us. I was talking with Rob today. Looks like he is going to stop in about 1:20 tomorrow. So we'll pretty well finish up the show with Rob. Last week on the show, Ray, Rob, and myself looked at 5 hitting categories and 5 kind of milestones. And we selected 5 players who have never reached those milestones. And we said, yeah, this guy will do it. 90 runs. This guy will hit 300, those kind of things. Tomorrow, Ray will do pitchers. So I'm thinking, you tell me if I'm wrong here. We could do 15 wins. 15 wins. A sub 3 ERA. You like that, or is it too low?
3. What do you think? Maybe a little higher, 3.25?
Is that getting anybody excited? I want to get out of bed for this one, right?
All right,
I'd say
do 3
sub.
then.
How many guys were sub 3 last year? Do you know?
Not many.
Yeah, 15
Handful.
maybe.
No, I don't even think it's that
Okay,
many.
we can do 3.25. Let's do 3.25. I'm going to write these down so I give Rob. So 15 wins, 3.25 ERA, WHIP 1.2.
We had, by the way, I'm looking it up. We had 19 guys at 3.23. 3.25.
Sure.
All right, 3.25. WHIP 1. 1.5. 1.2. What do you want to do?
1.18. Hell no, I don't care about a 1.5.
No, 1.15 is what I said.
Oh yeah, 1.2. I say 1.2. It's a round number.
Okay.
Strikeouts 180.
175.
God, is 180 that hard to get to?
Yes.
Jeez.
How many guys had 180 strikeouts last year, Kyle?
7.
180 guys. We had 19.
Okay, we can do 180, Ray.
You think Merrill Kelly's getting there this year?
Who?
Merrill Kelly? I don't know how many guys are going to step. Okay, all right, 180.
And then, okay, well, I was going to offer this. Would you rather do saves, but also a 5th category as holds, and maybe get rid of one of the ratio categories, or do you think holds is just not important enough? I don't think holds is important enough.
I think everyone still uses saves. So I think that's the best one.
20 saves.
That sounds good.
Okay. So those are our standards. 15 wins, 20 saves, 180 whiffs, 3.25 on the ERA, and 1.2 on the WHIP.
Okay.
And I'm thinking if like you had a 1.2 WHIP, but it was under 75 innings, we don't.
You want to say 75 innings? Like we got to
say
it just has to be a starting pitcher. Like how do we just 100 innings pitched? What do you want to do?
Well, the key is finding guys who haven't reached this number
Right.
before. So I believe, Ray, if you've got let's say you were a starting pitcher, but your WHIP was 3, or your ERA was 3.2, but you threw 60 innings, I don't count that. 75 innings.
I would say it's 162 for the ERA. I'd go 80 just because it's like
80.
half. Let's do
Okay,
80.
I can meet you there,
Okay.
and we'll do that for WHIP too.
Okay,
So
got it.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Deciding live right here on Lunch Money. So that draft will be fun tomorrow. I'll make sure Rob gets all that information. Quickly on football, the Jets, Ray, they don't have a quarterback, but they are loading up at receiver. They just signed another one here today, right?
They did. And, the Jets, they better get that quarterback that they're trying to get because they're going to have a lot of wide receivers making some money here that known to throw the ball to. They've got Garrett Wilson, obviously. They brought in Alan Lazard, who they signed the big contract to. McCole Hardman is now reportedly a Jet. We don't have contract details, so we don't know what the numbers look there yet, but he'll join the team. It's a deal with the Jets, so McCole Hardman will give the Jets, in theory, a pretty damn good top 3 of Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and Hardman, Kyle.
Well, the problem is, Ray, your man, your love affair, Garrett Wilson, you're cooling your Jets with every signing here, aren't you?
Well, if Hardman's getting 5 or 6 targets and Lazard's getting 6, 7 targets, it does start to cap things a little bit. Obviously, more for defenses to think about and all that. But if Hardman and Lazard are healthy and in the offense as they should be, it's not that easy to get 12 targets a week to Garrett Wilson, right? So we'll see on that.
Now, Ray, if you can't get Aaron Rodgers, is the next best strategy to load up on receivers so that maybe Zach Wilson can at least have guys that are open? I mean, maybe we could end up with Zach Wilson throwing to these guys. Maybe they said, screw the Rodgers thing, and we'll go up and – because I don't know what other QBs you're getting right now outside of the draft.
Yeah.
They might be out there.
I mean, again, you have to – they can't stop, right? They can't just say, well, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers, everything's fine. They can assume it, but they have to keep going. So I assume in Hardman's case that it's not going to be a 5-year, $70 million deal. It's not like something like that. So it's probably rather inexpensive. Might even be a 1-year deal, right? It might be something really short term. So I don't think that would preclude them from doing anything else, including bringing Rodgers in.
Yeah, they could still do Lamar Jackson too. Jackson supposedly has told teams, I can't say interested teams because none appear to be interested, but he has told teams he's done with Baltimore, which I didn't really doubt that. I kind of figured that was part of the deal going on with Lamar Jackson. A little more football tomorrow, maybe on the show, or at least Friday. We do want to talk about free agency. Things are slowing down, so it'll be time to kind of grade these things out. Before we do any of that, and before we close it down, dessert to go. Ray's a dog guy. Our producer, Heather, she's a dog gal. Ray, the Labrador Retriever, had been the #1 U.S. dog breed for 31 years. That is a record. I would guess it's a record by miles, but it has now been dethroned. Heather, if you can pull the photo, let's show everybody the breed that has now dethroned the Labrador Retriever. That guy, the French Bulldog. Look at that guy, Ray. Now, I'll say I'm not a dog guy, but that's a cute guy. I think that's a fun-looking dog, don't you?
Sure.
You don't like him. You don't
there's
like it?
And a lot of slobber. Not my brother would be a fan. My brother's son would be a fan, but it's not really what I'm looking for, Kyle.
Ray is not interested in the slobbering side of a
Not
dog,
really.
right? You don't like the whole hooch thing from Turner and Hooch.
Good call. Correct. I do not.
Yeah. What about like other bulldogs, the British bulldog or whatever? I don't even know if it's a British bulldog.
I legitimately have no experience with bulldogs, so I don't.
Yeah.
I do know there's a couple of Frenchies, as they're called, that are at the dog park and stuff, and they seem very friendly and nice. They come up to you. They like to rumble a little bit, so they seem like very nice personality. Just not my.
They're thick. They're thick.
Yeah.
They don't live very long either. That's the thing with bulldogs. They tend to pass away at a fairly early age, but they are now the #1 top breed in the U.S. We are done. Back tomorrow at 12 Eastern. We'll see you then on the Bettor Sports Network.